Chapter 801. The spring rain had arrived and the morning sun had already stopped. The first rays of the morning sun had just risen. At this time, Lin Fengyi had already woken up early to work. However, he didn't want to get up today. Perhaps it was because the person in his arms was clinging to him, causing him to give up on the idea. After tormenting her for the entire night, she was still in a deep sleep and showed no signs of waking up. Her baby-like cheeks were flushed from the warmth of the blanket. Her lips were red and slightly curled up, as if she had dreamed of something good. Her ink-black hair scattered on the bed and a few strands stuck to her face. He couldn't help but think of her beauty when she was in full bloom last night. It turned out that she was also so beautiful in men's clothing. His heart stirred and he wanted to raise his hand to caress her face. However, at this time, there was a knock on the door. "Sir, this subordinate has something to report." Lin Fengyi retracted his hand and frowned slightly. Although he didn't like to be disturbed at this time, he still got up and pulled the blanket up to cover her shoulders. After changing his clothes, Lin Fengyi looked back at her worriedly. She was drunk last night. He should have stayed to wait for her to wake up and explain to her properly. If she woke up and saw this scene, who knew what would happen? However, his subordinate came to look for him so early. It must be related to the official salt. He couldn't delay. Thus, he walked back to the bed and looked at her deeply. Then, he leaned over and wanted to wake her up. However, when he saw her sleeping face, he couldn't bear to do so. In the end, he kissed her forehead lightly and said softly, "Stay here obediently. Wait for me to come back and give you an explanation." Hua Xiao was sleeping soundly and blocked out all sounds from the outside world. Thus, when Lin Fengyi left, she didn't know at all. Before Lin Fengyi left, he had instructed that no one was to enter his room, so no one disturbed him. Hua Xiao slept until late in the morning. She opened her eyes and looked at this unfamiliar place blankly. Where was this? Were her eyes playing tricks on her? Just as she was about to raise her hand to rub her eyes, the blanket on her slid down. Naked body. Densely packed marks. What the hell was this? Hua Xiao suddenly sat up. She didn't have the habit of sleeping naked. However, when she got up, her entire body ached and she fell back into the blanket. She stared at the changes on her body. Although she was inexperienced, she more or less knew what had happened to her body. Her eyes were blank. At this time, last night's memories of her mind. Last night, she wanted to get closer to him. Hua Xiao. She also clearly remembered his slender fingers roaming over her body. Steam rose from her face. At this moment, Hua Xiao wished she could find a hole to crawl into. It's over. He's going to eat me up completely. Damn it, Hua Xiao, will never let you off. After feeling embarrassed, Hua Xiao combed her hair. Then she struggled to get up from the bed. She looked around for Lin Fengyi, but she couldn't find him. Even if she took the initiative, wasn't he a gentleman? How could he not resist? She bit the blanket and angrily said, "This guy, after eating me up, he ran away. Irresponsible, bad guy. I won't let you off so easily. Next time I see you, I'll bite you to death." Hua Xiao trembled as she got up. She picked up her clothes from the floor and found that they were torn into rags. She made a mental note of him again. Then she opened his wardrobe and changed into one of his clothes. Although it was a little long, it was better than nothing. She tidied herself up and covered everything that should be covered. Then, Hua Xiao sneakily opened the door. She couldn't be seen by others. Otherwise, her reputation would be ruined. Although she didn't care, her father cared. But Hua Xiao didn't know that everyone in the Lin mansion knew that she stayed in Lin Fengyi's room. So when she sneaked out, everyone pretended not to see her. Oh, young Master Hua is embarrassed. We can't make her feel awkward. Quickly hide. Don't let her find out. That's our future wife. She's even wearing our Lord's clothes. They look more and more like husband and wife. Hua Xiao held her waist and walked out of the Lin mansion. Her forehead was covered in sweat. Isn't Lin Fengyi gay? Why is he so ruthless when he fights? Bastard, it's so unbearable. Where there's life, there's hope. Hua Xiao awkwardly walked back. With every step, she would curse Lin Fengyi, as if only by doing so could she lessen the unbearable feeling. Lin Fengyi, who was focused on his work, received the news that Hua Xiao had left. He sighed helplessly. This time, he was afraid that this fellow would bear a grudge against him. It would take a lot of effort to explain. Thinking about her violent temper, Lin Fengyi felt a headache. It was more difficult than the work at hand. Forget it. He would explain to her after this matter was settled. In the Chu mansion, Chu Qingyan had been poached early. She heard that the 3 nannies were going to give her special training today. Although Chu Qingyan had a bad premonition, she couldn't refuse and had to go. 9th young Mistress Chu, we have already finished learning how to walk and stand yesterday. However, you were born in the countryside, and changing your bad habits is not something that can be done in a short period of time. You will have to go back and revise your previous etiquette. Therefore, we will continue with the rest of the lesson. Granny Hong said to Chu Qingyan in a strange tone. From these words, it was clear that they didn't really want to teach her etiquette. They just wanted to take the opportunity to make things difficult for her. Then I'll have to trouble you, nannies. Chu Qingyan smiled. Okay, today we'll learn the essentials of kneeling. When you see the emperor, you have to kowtow 3 times and kowtow 9 times. When you serve your in-laws, you also have to pay respects. These are the daily etiquette. But there's a difference between kneeling and kowtowing. Every detail is different. So, young lady, you have to learn it carefully. Nanny Li said with a fake smile. Chu Qingyan felt that her smile was very dazzling. She thought that she would have a hard time today. Then, young lady, please demonstrate the daily kneeling. Nanny Hong said with a cold look. Chapter 802. Chu Qingyan frowned, but she did not say anything and knelt down. It seems that 9th Miss Chu is really not from a noble family. She can't even perform this etiquette well. Mammy Li, demonstrate to Miss how to perform the real kneeling ceremony. Mammy Zheng said impolitely. Okay. After Mammy Li demonstrated the salute and got up, she turned to Chu Qingyan and said, Miss, watch carefully. Do it again according to my practice. Chu Qingyan looked around at the 3 people and saw that they put their hands in front of their bodies, as if they were watching a good show. She sneered in her heart, you can continue to laugh. You will suffer in the future. She restrained her mocking look and knelt down again. No, your posture is too stiff, and the direction of your hands is wrong. Do it again. Mammy Hong waved her hand and said in a very impatient tone. No, your feet are not together. Do it again. The direction is wrong. Do it again. The cold and hard ground hurt a little. It was a spring morning, but Chu Qingyan was sweating. She gritted her teeth and endured it. Since 9th Miss Chu can't get the main points after several times, it's better to kneel like this for 2 or 3 hours and understand the main points. Lu, you stand here and supervise Mississippi, don't be lazy. Otherwise, you will be disobeying the Empress's decree. Mammy Hong and others bowed to Chu Qingyan condescendingly, and then went into the room to drink tea, leaving Chu Qingyan alone to face the bluestone. Hearing the laughter in the room, Chu Qingyan bent down slightly, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised in an angle that others could not see. Huling rushed into the study in a hurry. Master, it's not good, it's not good. Xiao Su was painting at this time. Seeing him so anxious, he could not help but stop the tip of the pen, raised his eyebrows and said, What happened? I heard that the little princess Consort was punished by the mamas to kneel. From this morning until now, it has already been several hours. Xining was so scared that she cried. Huo Ling spoke quickly with a very worried expression. A drop of thick ink dripped from the tip of his nose onto the white paper. In the blink of an eye, it dyed a large black blob, just like Xiao Su's mood at this moment. The bottom of his eyes was like thick ink that couldn't be dissolved, frighteningly black. These people must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. He threw down his pen and strode out of the door coldly. Huo Ling thought that these mamas were going to suffer. They were the people in his master's heart, so he immediately followed after her. At this time, in the side courtyard, Xining, who was standing at the side, saw her master's face getting paler and paler. She couldn't help but sob, "Master, let's not kneel anymore. We don't need to learn this rule anymore. Let's go back." Chu Qingyan shook her head. "Be good. Stand aside and don't say anything." "I'm fine." "Your face is already this pale, how could you be fine?" Xining shook her head in disbelief and went forward to pull her up. But at this time, the three mamas who had received a report from outside aggressively came out. "You cheap wench, don't you know that your master is learning the rules? Move aside for me." Mammy Hung pointed at Xining and shouted. "Xining, be good and go back." Chu Qingyan was afraid that these people would vent their anger on Xining, so she immediately urged her in a low voice. Seeing her master being bullied like this, Xining did not care about anything else. She angrily glared at the people in front of her and hatefully said, "My master has been kneeling for so many hours and you still want her to keep kneeling. You're going too far. If you're dissatisfied with my master, you can come at me, Xining. I'm even willing to kneel for several hours, please let my master go." Xining. Chu Qingyan never thought that the always timid Xining would not be afraid of power to stand up for her. Her eyes became hot and she could not say anything. She actually dares to go against her master. It really is a servant raised by a master. Lu, fiercely slap her. Let's see if she dares to speak rudely again. Granny Hong ordered Lu, She had come to Jiangnan to teach Chu Qingyan a lesson on behalf of the empress. Now, she would start with Chu Qingyan's trusted servant girl. She wanted to see if Chu Qingyan would still behave. Chu Qingyan immediately said, "Mammy Hong, Xining is young. If she offends you, please forgive her. Great people don't hold grudges for petty people. Don't argue with her." After that, she winked at Xining to let her be obedient. "Young?" Mammy Zheng sneered a few times and said, "She can be the chief maid of the 9th Miss Chu, which means that her ability is appreciated by you. In this case, she doesn't care about her luck and dares to contradict us. It can be seen that she has no manners at all. Today, if I don't teach her for you, if she offends you in the future, you will be implicated in the future. So you'd better watch aside. I am not only teaching you the court etiquette, but also teaching you how to discipline your servants." Chu Qingyan narrowed her cold eyes and said, "Mammy Zheng, today I am here. I won't let you hurt the people around me. If you insist on punishing her, you can punish me. It's my fault for not being strict with my servants. I am responsible." She knew that these people came from the palace and the means of punishing people were quite exquisite. They knew how to beat people without leaving a trace but could make the victim feel unbearable pain. Xining had been with her since she was a child. She knew what she was capable of. She would definitely not be able to bear these punishments. Mammy Zheng was not angry but laughed. Instead, she thought that she could take this opportunity to make Chu Qingyan suffer physical pain. Why not? It's really a deep affection between the master and the servant. I am moved. But the country has its laws and the family has its rules. If you show favoritism, how can you convince others in the future? Since you have spoken, I can only punish her. Lu, slap her 10 times as punishment. After Mammy Zheng finished speaking, Mammy Zheng and Mammy Li looked at each other at the same time. Although 10 slaps didn't sound much, only they, who had lived in the palace for many years, knew that 10 slaps were enough to make her speechless for 3 days. And this time, it seemed that they didn't intend to show mercy. Since His Highness liked her face, they would ruin her face. Then they would see what she could use to confuse His Highness in the future. Furthermore, they were here on the Empress' orders. Even if they disfigured Chu Qingyan's face, it was unlikely that His Highness would go against his own mother for the sake of a disfigured woman. Thus, the three of them were even more fearless. So they all stood there and waited to see Chu Qingyan being punished. Seeing Lu approaching step by step, Xining couldn't accept the result. She rushed forward to stand in front of her master and said to the crowd, "I don't allow you to touch a hair of my master. Take this bitch away." Mammy Hong waved her hand. Suddenly, several palace guards came forward and wanted to take Xining away. Xining was weak alone, so she could only be pulled away. "Master," with a pale face, Xining sobbed. She could only watch Lu raise her hand. Chu Qingyan glanced at Lu's triumphant smile and raised hand. Finally, her eyes fell on Mammy Hong and the other two. Her eyes were strange and pitiful. When Mammy Hong met her eyes, she couldn't help but be stunned. The girl's eyes were so scary. Mammy Hong shivered and then said angrily, "Do it." Chu Qingyan slowly closed her eyes. Good would be rewarded with good, and evil with evil. It was not that there was no reward, but it was not the time yet. Bang! The door of the side courtyard was kicked open. Chapter 803. Just like that, the solid door was kicked into several pieces. It flew into the air and spun a few times before landing on the ground, kicking up a large cloud of dust. Chu Qingyan turned her head when she heard the sound. She only saw Xian Mo's figure with a murderous aura. Step by step, she stepped on the broken pieces of wood, as if she was stepping on multicolored clouds. She walked towards her unhurriedly and quickly. She didn't look at Nanny Hong and the others who were trembling like sieves. She also didn't look at Lu and the others who were so scared that they didn't even dare to retreat. In her eyes, there was only the man who walked with each step. "I've waited for you for a long time. You're finally here. My big ice cube." Chu Qingyan's lips curled up. Her smile was like a flower. Xiao Su's gaze was unprecedentedly cold. Only when it landed on Chu Qingyan's body did it melt with warmth. But when he saw the person kneeling on the ground with her skirt covered in dust and a face full of exhaustion, his eyes hurt so much that they almost cracked. Mu Ling led people to surround the entire courtyard. All the palace guards were pressed to the ground with their hands behind their backs, unable to move. Xiao Su strode forward and reached out to hold the shoulders of the person in front of him. His voice was so low and gentle that others thought it was a hallucination. "Where do you feel uncomfortable?" He could only see her face that was as pale as paper. Her eyes that were as bright as the sun had lost their former luster. This already made his heart ache so much that he couldn't breathe. "I'm fine. It's just that," she smiled at Xiao Su. She had just said a few words when her entire body went limp. Xiao Su was greatly shocked. He immediately reached out to hold her in his arms. Only then did he realize that she had fainted. "Your Highness, my master woke up before the sun rose. She didn't even have time to eat breakfast. Just now, she knelt for more than 6 hours. How can her body take it?" Woo woo, seeing that her master had fainted, Xining was instantly scared to tears. She sobbed and wiped away her tears. When he heard this, he didn't dare delay. He immediately picked her up and turned to leave. "Your Highness, this old servant was teaching 9th young Miss Chu palace etiquette today. We really didn't know that young Mrs. Body could take it so much. Please forgive us, Your Highness." At first, everyone was just shocked by Xiao Su's sudden appearance. They didn't take Chu Qingyan seriously. But after His Highness' next move, the three of them realized that things were not good. They quickly walked to kneel in front of Xiao Su and pushed their responsibility of responsibility. Xiao Su was in a hurry to bring Chu Qingyan to see a doctor. Now that these people were blocking his way, he was enraged. He lifted his leg and kicked them. The three of them cried out in pain as they were sent flying. Just like the door earlier, they landed heavily on the ground. Xiao Su was a martial arts practitioner, and his martial arts were high. Adding to the fact that he was in a fit of rage, even a man with a strong physique might not be able to withstand the force of his kick. So when Mu Ling saw Mama Hong and the others crying out in pain on the ground, she silently cursed that they deserved it. Xiao Su looked at the people on the ground and did not immediately leave. His cold eyes swept over them. This king does not have time to settle accounts with you right now. However, if you hurt this king's people, don't think of seeing the sun tomorrow. Huo Ling, this subordinate is here. Huo Ling immediately came forward and bowed. Since they like to punish people to kneel, then let them enjoy it. Without this king's orders, no one can get up. Xiao Su gave a cold snort and left with large strides. The crying mamas immediately stood up when they heard this. They wanted to beg for mercy, but they were stopped by Xiao Lai Qi. Your Highness, this old servant has been wronged. Your Highness, please have mercy. Huo Ling walked in front of them with a mocking expression, touching people you shouldn't touch, you must be tired of living. Even his master could not bear to touch his little princess consort. These people were good, they came to provoke him. They must have eaten a leopard's heart. Men, make them kneel properly. If they kneel crookedly or wrongly, teach them a lesson. Huo Ling coldly ordered with his hands behind his back. Yes. The people in the courtyard immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. Unfortunately, it was too late. Because what this world lacked the most was medicine for regret. Xiao Su, how did you take care of my little sister? I was only gone for a few months, but you took care of her until she was covered in injuries. Look at her back, her hands, and her legs. They are all covered in whip marks. Did you abuse her? Although she is a martial artist, she can't withstand this kind of torture. Look at her knees. Do you know that if she continues to kneel, her legs will be crippled? Chu Qingyan seemed to hear Yan Luo's voice in a daze. Wasn't she in Lian City? Oh, that's not right. She had already returned. She was just delayed on the way. Yan Luo's words warmed her heart. Son-in-law, father trusts you so much, but you let Kai Kai suffer. My daughter is fine and healthy. Look at her. Her face used to be as pink and cute as a peach. Now she is as white as a steamed bun. Son-in-law, although father values you, I won't allow your Empress Gaoliang to bully my Kai Kai. At most, I won't marry you. It turned out that father was also in the room. When she heard father's words, she felt sad. She had made father worry. Because their voices were loud, Chu Qingyan heard them clearly. However, she could not hear Big Ice Cube's words. It was as if they were separated by a mountain and had turned into a busy tone. In the end, she fell asleep again because she was too tired. When she woke up again, it was already close to evening. She blinked. Before she could adjust to the light in the room, she heard a series of footsteps approaching. Little girl, you're awake. How are you feeling? Cheng Yanluo sat on her bed and asked with concern. My body is fine. I'm just a little hungry. She could not help but smile when she saw who it was. Cheng Yanluo nodded and waved outside. Someone brought in a bowl of piping hot meat porridge. Come, eat something first. Cheng Yanluo took it and planned to feed her personally. Chu Qingyan did not have much energy, so she ate with Cheng Yanluo's hand. She said seriously, Yanluo, I noticed that your personality is much gentler after you came back. Did you go through some training? Xining covered her mouth and snickered. Master, you didn't see how Miss Qing pointed at His Highness and scolded him today. She was so impressive. Chu Qingyan recalled what she had heard when she was unconscious. She did not expect it to be true. Big Ice Cube was really badly scolded by them. She could not help but smile. You scolded Big Ice Cube? Shouldn't I scold him? I know he'll avenge you, but I want him to be even angrier. Fuck. My little girl, you've been tortured to this extent in just a few days. You may be able to take this lying down, but I can't. Cheng Yanluo was so angry that she was about to spit out smoke from her eyes, ears, nostrils, and mouth. Fuck. My little girl, you've been tortured to this extent in just a few days. You may be able to swallow this, but I can't. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled slyly. How do you know I can take it lying down? What do you mean? Cheng Yanluo looked at her. Chapter 804. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would allow others to bully me? Chu Qingyan slowly ate the meat porridge in her mouth and smiled softly. However, in Cheng Yanluo's eyes, it was as if the king of hell was demanding payment. Cheng Yanluo had never dared to underestimate this young but experienced girl in front of her. Her interest was piqued and she whispered in her ear, "Did you do something?" After eating a few mouthfuls of food, Chu Qingyan had regained some strength and looked much better. She smiled innocently at Cheng Yanluo and said, "Do you know that in the art of war, the most effective counterattack is to deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo?" Cheng Yanluo rolled her eyes at her. "I'm talking to you about something important. Why are you talking about the art of war with me? Hurry up and tell me the truth." Only then did Chu Qingyan smile gently, and her gaze became a little shallow. "Actually, I've suffered so much, and I'm not just a sitting duck. I know that they came to Jiangnan with the intention of making me suffer, so that I'll know how difficult it is and retreat. I don't want to stay by Big Ice Cube's side anymore, but how could I fulfill their wishes? But I know that they're Empress Liang's people. If I touch them, it'll be tantamount to falling out with Empress Liang. It'll also force Big Ice Cube to choose between his family and me. It'll put him in a dilemma, so I can't do that." Speaking up to this point, her smile gradually deepened. "But I can't let anyone bully me like this. If it was real swords and spears, then I'd admit defeat. But why do you have to use such methods to force me to submit? So you asked Big Ice Cube to take the initiative to come forward?" Cheng Yanluo guessed. She nodded. "First, I was injured and was discovered by him. Although he didn't say much on the surface, based on his meticulous nature, he will definitely have some suspicions. Then, he will definitely send people to strictly guard the side courtyard. That's why Big Ice Cube immediately noticed when the three grannies deliberately made things difficult for me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed over. I can predict that they will either die or be seriously injured." At this point, Chu Qingyan turned to look at the person in front of her. There was a hint of struggle in her eyes. "Yanluo, am I being unkind by doing this?" As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Qingyan was hit in the head by Cheng Yanluo. She covered her head and looked at Cheng Yanluo, feeling wronged. "Why don't you think about it? If they didn't take advantage of you and teach you well instead of torturing you to death, would they have left something for Xiao Lai to use against His Royal Highness?" Cheng Yanluo glared at her again. "How are you being unkind? It was simply not ruthless enough. If it were me, I would have already sent them to heaven with a needle." "Ahem, you are a doctor, not a butcher." Chu Qingyan could not help but remind him. "So what if he's a doctor? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I won't spare them. I also have a temper." Cheng Yanluo raised her head slightly and said rudely. Chu Qingyan could not help but look helpless, but her eyes were very firm. "You're right. Those people deserve the punishment they deserve." She did not deliberately cover up the scars on her hands. She knew that Big Ice Cube would definitely pay attention to Nanny Hong and the others. She also knew that Nanny Hong and the others would not let her have an easy time. Therefore, everything that happened today was the result of yesterday's cause. She did not plan it, but secretly added fuel to the fire. But she did not regret it. There was no fairness in this world. In ancient times, people were destined to do many things when they were born. But she had to live not only for herself, but also for her family. Although she was not born in a noble family, she could not be easily trampled on by anyone, not even the noble mother of the nation. Since she could not do it herself, she would let Big Ice Cube do it for her. At dusk, Nanny Zheng and the others threw themselves at the feet of Xiao Su. At this time, they had been kneeling in the cold wind for more than 6 hours. They had not eaten for 2 meals, so they were tired, painful and hungry. Your Highness, I just wanted to correct ninth young lady Chu's etiquette. If there is anything inappropriate, I will admit it. But I have no intention of harming the young lady. Your Highness, please understand. Nanny Li said with tears in her eyes. Huling, slap her in the face. Xiao Su said indifferently. Huling immediately stepped forward and slapped Nanny Li in the face, which made her stunned. Your Highness, what did I say wrong? Nanny Li didn't know what happened. She was so scared that she trembled and spat out blood. Xiao Su coldly looked at her, but Huling on the side replied, you all follow the Empress, so you should be very clear on titles, so you should call her Princess Consort and not ninth young Miss Chu. Master didn't argue with you before because you've served the Empress for so many years. Master didn't argue with you before because you've served the Empress for so many years. Just because of a title, His Highness had ruthlessly attacked Mammy Li. Mammy Hong and Mammy Zheng looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. His Highness was going to make a move on them. The two of them who had maintained their status immediately bowed to Xiao Su and said, Your Highness, please spare us. We old servants didn't mean to hurt the Princess Consort. You didn't mean to. Xiao Su said coldly, if you didn't mean to, you let Ayan fall ill in bed. If you meant to, wouldn't she die? How dare you? The last sentence made the three of them tremble with fear. We followed the Empress's order to teach the King of England, Princess Consort. Your Highness, you can't punish us casually. They thought that if they mentioned His Highness's biological mother, the Empress, he would forgive them for the sake of her face. But they didn't know that this intensified Xiao Su's anger. If it weren't for the fact that they were sent by the Empress, the little fellow wouldn't compromise at all. In other words, in order not to put him in a dilemma, she concealed the fact that these bastards bullied her and didn't want to resist. If it weren't for this, how could his Ayan be so seriously injured? She had suffered so many grievances. When he thought of this, Xiao Su looked at them as if he was looking at dead people. Mama Hong, this prince let you stay because I didn't want to brush away the Empress's good intentions. But you went against her original intention and bullied her daughter-in-law. Since she's not here, then this prince will punish you on her behalf. Your Highness, please spare our lives. Your Highness, please spare our lives. This old servant won't dare to do it again. Your Highness, I beg you. Take them away. All the torture they inflicted on Ayan before, return it 10 times, 100 times to this prince. Teach them what court etiquette is. This subordinate obeys. Mama Hong and the other two had their hair disheveled and their mouths stuffed with strips of cloth. They struggled to be dragged away, and all the palace servants who followed them to Jiangnan were also taken away. Soon, they heard the sound of the whip hitting the skin, as well as painful cries. Xiao Su stood in the courtyard with his hands behind his back, his eyes as cold as ice. Empress Mother, you actually laid your hands on Ayan. I will remember this. Chapter 805. When Chu Qingyan woke up from another nap, the first thing she saw when she opened her eyes was the person sitting at the head of her bed like a statue. As Bai Sun Yenluo had blocked the door, it was impossible for this person to enter. Seeing him now meant that Bai Sun Yenluo had let him in. Big ice block, it's so late. Aren't you going to rest? She looked out of the window. It was dark outside. She must have slept through the day. When she woke up, Xiao Su had already sensed that something was amiss. His frosty gaze instantly disappeared when he heard her voice. He lifted a hand to brush away the loose hair by her face. His voice carried a hint of resentment. If I didn't wait until now, would that King Yama let me in? Chu Qingyan coughed softly. It was rare to see Big Ice Block so aggrieved. If tens of thousands of cavalrymen saw this side of their master, they would probably think that the person in front of them was a different person. She wanted to avenge me. Don't take it to heart. Chu Qingyan blinked and pleaded for Yen Luo. Xiao Su chuckled. She dared to stand in front of me and scold me while pointing at my nose. I could hear your injuries but couldn't see you. She's offending her superior. With her audacity, do you think I'd let her off if it was someone else? When Chu Qingyan heard this, she could not help but smile. In that case, I shall thank your highness for your forgiveness in advance. Did I say I'd let her off? Xiao Su glared at her. Chu Qingyan rested her hands on the quilt and tilted her head slightly to look at him. Her eyes were full of smiles. You've never given others a chance to breathe. Since you're here criticizing Yan Luo, I'm sure you don't intend to punish her. Besides, she treated my injuries. We owe her another favor. Oh, you. Xiao Su shook his head and laughed. Ayan was the only one who knew him well. Chu Qingyan stuck her tongue out at him, looking mischievous. After laughing, her smile faded and she said seriously, actually, you indulge her because you think what she said makes sense, right? Xiao Su's smile disappeared and he looked at her with bright eyes. Chu Qingyan didn't know what he was thinking. She fearlessly met his gaze, but there was still some doubt in her heart. I have already asked Hualing to clean up Ayan and Granny Hong. Even the people who came out of Chaoyang Palace will not be spared, Xiao Su said firmly. Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. Leave none alive? After all, those people had all come from Chaoyang Palace, and they had come to Jiangnan on Empress Liang's orders. She had thought that after this had happened, at most, the big ice block would chase them back to the imperial palace. She had not thought that he would kill them all. Xiao Su reached out to stroke her head. His eyes were cold where she couldn't see them. Originally, he just wanted to teach these people a lesson and then chase them out of Jiangnan. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. However, when Hualing and the others searched the side courtyard today, they found many dangerous drugs. Not only was there the red crane crown poison that could kill people silently, there was also a powder that could make them unable to conceive for the rest of their lives. These people had clearly come prepared. If it wasn't for Hualing finding them, he didn't dare imagine what would happen if these poisons were used on Ayan. Right, if they have any intentions of harming you, leave none alive. It was like he was saying this to himself, but it was also like he was making a promise to her. Without knowing why, Chu Qingyan felt that there was something wrong with the person in front of her, but hearing him protect her, her eyes couldn't help becoming slightly wet. Compared to this, the torture she had suffered over the past 2 days was nothing at all. Big ice block, there is something I want to confess to you. Chu Qingyan sat up and gathered her courage to look at him. When she met his handsome eyes, she pursed her lips. Actually, the things that happened today, I'm suspected of adding fuel to the fire. After saying this, she closed her eyes. She knew that the big ice block disliked hiding things and lying the most. She did not lie about this matter, but she did hide some things. With the big ice block's intelligence, even if he didn't find out now, he would definitely find out after this matter. Rather than finding out herself, it was better to honestly confess. But hearing the person in front of her not reply for a long time, Chu Qingyan couldn't help being confused. Was the big ice block confused by her anger? When she was struggling to open her eyes, a soft laugh sounded in her ears. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw the person in front of her with his arms crossed as he looked at her with a teasing gaze. Do you think you can fool me with your tricks? Chu Qingyan was startled. You know. You were raised by me. How could I not know what you are thinking? Xiao Su raised his hand to pinch her cheek. It felt really good to the touch. What do you mean raised by you? In any case, I've lived alone for 10 years, okay? Then why did you still? Chu Qingyan opened her mouth, but didn't continue. You want to ask why I pretended that nothing happened and punished Nanny Hong and the others for you? Xiao Su continued her words and looked at her with a smile. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips in silent agreement. Xiao Su stared at her for a while, his eyes gradually darkening. Ayan, you are my future wife, the person I will protect for my entire life, but you don't believe me. Xiao Su had never spoken harshly to Chu Qingyan, but when he said this, it was like a thunderbolt. making her instantly widen her eyes. Chu Qingyan subconsciously wanted to explain, but she didn't know where to start. She acquiesced to Nanny Hong and the others' unreasonable conditions not only because she didn't want to have a direct conflict with them, but also because she didn't want Big Ice Cube to be involved and be in a dilemma. However, she didn't expect them to come prepared and target her everywhere. Moreover, as long as she relaxed, they could kill her at any time. If it was a real fight, she wouldn't be afraid, but it was impossible to guard against the women's tricks hidden under the embroidery needles in the backyard. She was a person with a big heart and didn't want to be bound by the dirty things in the backyard, so she let Nanny Hong and the others make a big deal out of it. If she wanted to kill Nanny Hong and the others with her own hands, it was actually very simple. It was enough to show mercy and power, but she didn't want to. She could only treat the symptoms, but Big Ice Cube could treat the root of the problem. Xiao Su stood up and walked to the side of the table. Looking at the burning candlelight, he opened his mouth with his back to her and said with a faint voice, "Ian, you're smarter than others. These people are no match for you, but you'd rather wait for me to help you than tell me. Can't I make you trust me wholeheartedly?" Chu Qingyan bit her lip and shook her head, but the person with her back to him couldn't see her movements. Her expression was sad and helpless. "Ian, I won't let go of anyone who hurt you, but," Xiao Su paused and finally said with a disappointed tone, "have a good rest." Before Chu Qingyan could call out to him, he had already left. She could only stare at the tightly shut door, feeling dejected and dispirited. "Actually, it's not that I don't trust you, but I'm afraid you'll dislike me. You have a broad mind and outstanding strategies. You definitely don't want to deal with the women in the backyard all day long. If I bother you with these things, I'm afraid you'll think I'm the same as those women, mediocre and jealous. When love is strong to the extreme, it's because you're afraid of losing." Chapter 806. When Xiao Su walked out the door, his cold expression instantly turned into a soft sigh. He slowly walked out. Huo Ling, who was following behind him, had a stomach full of words, so he had to spit them out. "Master, the words you said just now were a bit heavy. Little Princess Consort is not that kind of person." When Xiao Su heard this, it seemed like he was complaining for Ian. He couldn't help smiling. The people he had trained for so many years had all been subdued by her in the end. "What kind of person?" Xiao Su asked. Huo Ling hesitated a bit before saying, "Although Little Princess Consort did nothing about Mama Hang's matter and allowed them to make a big fuss, this subordinate believes that Little Princess Consort is not a scheming and vicious person." "Huo Ling, you've only been by her side, but you already know Ian's personality. Not to mention, this king has carefully protected her for so many years, so how could I not know her kindness? If someone didn't step on her bottom line, she would not take the initiative to make a move." Xiao Su thought of her stubborn and wronged appearance tonight and his heart filled with pity. Then why did Master treat Little Princess Consort like this tonight? Huo Ling couldn't help asking. "Huo Ling, you know what this king wants." Xiao Su stopped walking and looked at the deep moonlight with a desolate look in his eyes. Huo Ling could feel it and felt that his master was a bit impatient. Although Little Princess Consort was smart, she was only 15 years old. He scratched his head, but Little Princess Consort is still young. "Do you want to give her a bit more time?" Xiao Su's eyes were cold. This king is afraid there won't be enough time. Huo Ling was stunned. Xiao Su did not say anything else and looked into the distance. His eyes were unfocused, like he was thinking and sighing. "Ian, I hope that you don't have to wait for me to find you every time. I'm not a god, so I won't be able to see everything every time. I'm afraid that if I'm careless, I'll lose you. I have a lifetime to wait for you to open your heart and trust me with all your heart. But, I'm also afraid that the world is unpredictable." In a room in the side courtyard, Liang Danjing and Liang Danbing both had heavy expressions. "Elder sister, Granny Hong and the others and the people we brought out from the imperial palace have all been taken away by eldest cousin. Where do you think they will be taken to?" Liang Danbing twisted her handkerchief and asked worriedly. It was not because she cared about them, but because once these people were gone, the strength they could rely on would be reduced by more than half. Liang Danjing's expression was terrible. She took a deep breath and said, "I'm afraid these people are no longer here." What? Liang Danbing sucked in a breath of air, extremely shocked. What kind of person is His Highness? Back then, he led 10,000 troops against 30,000 enemy troops. The disparity in strength between us and the enemy was huge, but he still managed to flatten the enemy troops. Do you think such a person is a merciful person? Liang Danjing stood up and walked around the room with a serious expression. I originally thought that I could borrow Granny Hong and the others' hands to slowly torture Chu Qingyan, but I didn't expect them to be so impatient and want to step on Chu Qingyan under their feet in 2 days. It's really wishful thinking. People from the Imperial Palace are people from the Imperial Palace. Their eyes are high and they think that this is also their Imperial Palace. That's why they are so unscrupulous. If they die, it's not unjust. It's a pity that we lost a helper. Liang Danbing quickly understood and was vexed at losing a useful weapon. A group of useless servants, there's nothing to feel pity about. If they are all so brainless, it's a clean death, so that they won't hinder our hands and feet in the future. Liang Danjing said ruthlessly. Liang Danbing nodded. Indeed, their deaths are not regrettable. The two of them were just young ladies in their prime, yet they were talking about the life and death of others as if they were talking about a few ants. The degree of indifference they showed was frightening. Then what should we do now? Liang Danbing was a little anxious. Today, Granny Hong and the others died, and Chu Qingyan is injured in bed. It seems that the situation is very unfavorable for us. His Highness must be on guard against us sisters. If we sit and wait for death, then I'm afraid that we won't have a chance to rise again. Liang Danjing said calmly. Generally, when she heard this, Liang Danbing knew that her sister had a countermeasure. She couldn't help but ask, what should sister do? Liang Danjing stood by the table, her fingers sliding across the table. Under the candlelight, her fingertips were white, but her nails reflected a frightening cold light. His Highness promised me yesterday, but today was delayed because of Chu Qingyan. Why don't we change it to tonight? Although Liang Danbing didn't understand why she suddenly changed the topic, she always supported her sister's decisions unconditionally. Xiao Su, who had just returned to the courtyard, received a message from a servant, saying that Miss Biao's servant, Lu Ji, had something to report. Xiao Su raised his hand to let her in. Your Highness, my family's miss said that today's invitation was unexpectedly blocked and she doesn't want to break the promise. Why don't we change it to tonight? She asks your Highness to do her the honor and move to the side courtyard. Lu Ji stood under the table and said respectfully. Hearing no response, Lu Ji couldn't help but raise her head. She met a pair of eyes that were as cold as torches. She was so frightened that she immediately lowered her head. Just a glance was enough to knock into the depths of one's heart. It was too frightening. Xiao Su was indifferent. When did this prince agree to your family's misrequest? Although it wasn't said clearly, it was all your wishful thinking. Lu Ji's face paled. Your Highness, my family's miss said that although her surname is different from yours, she is still a cousin. She hopes that you will do her the honor. Xiao Su's eyes moved. Was Liang Danjing trying to use the Liang family to threaten him? He didn't want to pay attention, but Xiao Su thought about it and finally stood up. This prince agrees. Lu Ji was overjoyed and immediately led the way. Because the other party was only a woman and the residence was under the control of Xiao Lai-chi, Xiao Su didn't bring any attendants and followed her alone. Chu Qingyan, on the other hand, was still in her room. Ever since Xiao Su left, she had sunk into confusion and frustration. Big Ice Cube didn't blame Yen Luo for offending him, nor did he care about his father's criticism. He silently helped her take care of everything and relieved her of her worries. Then, when night fell, he entered the room and stayed by her side. As for her little tricks behind his back, he had long seen through them, but he didn't say anything. From the beginning, he was waiting for her to take the initiative to ask for his help, but in the end, she accepted it without saying a word. So the one who was really angry with the big ice cube wasn't anyone else, but her. He couldn't blame her for adding fuel to the fire, or it could be said that she didn't care at all. The only thing he wanted was her trust. Thinking of this, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but lift the quilt and get off the bed. If I don't find the big ice cube and clear things up, I'm afraid he'll ignore me for several days. She muttered to herself. If it was someone else who was angry, they would wish that the other party wasn't in front of them. But when he was angry, he would always adopt a one-sided Cold War. He would eat, play, and sit with her, but he would ignore her. Sometimes, Chu Qingyan felt that he was torturing her. But this big ice cube was quite cute. She casually put on a coat and skipped over to Xiao Su's courtyard. It was almost summer, and the wind was a little hot. This night, they were destined to be entangled. Chapter 807. Little Princess, Master isn't here. Huoling saw the person who suddenly appeared in the yard and immediately went forward. Not here. Where did he go so late at night? Chu Qingyan's originally nervous heart calmed down when she heard this news, but her heart was filled with doubt. Huoling had an awkward expression. They had never hidden Master's whereabouts from the little princess, but he couldn't say it right now because of the time and place. Master, he. Huoling's expression flickered and Chu Qingyan slowly narrowed her eyes. Could it be that Huoling was hiding something from her? Huoling, are you going to say it, or say it, or say it? Although her voice was gentle and not strict at all, when it fell into Huoling's ears, it was full of pressure. Huoling lowered his head. With the little princess's methods, even if she didn't know now, she would get the news in a while. It was better to tell the truth. Miss Biao just invited Master for a chat. Right now, Master is in the side yard. Chu Qingyan's originally calm eyes suddenly rippled, but it was only for a moment before it quickly disappeared. Only calmness remained in her eyes that were as bright as a sea of stars. I know. Huoling felt that the little princess in front of him was a bit different than usual. He felt it was very strange, but right now it wasn't suitable for him to say anything. He could only bow and watch her leave. After walking out of the yard, the smile on Chu Qingyan's face slowly faded. She turned back to look at the flickering lights in the yard and a trace of confusion appeared in her eyes. It was so late and the big ice cube was going to make an appointment. It didn't seem like his personality, but Huoling's evasive manner made her heart feel desolate. Perhaps she would know the answer if she went to take a look. After making the decision, Chu Qingyan didn't hesitate to walk to the side yard. Perhaps Huoling never would have thought that his unintentional action would cause Chu Qingyan to misunderstand. Then, there was an irreversible situation. Xiao Su walked into the side courtyard and glanced around. Unlike the main courtyard, where all the lanterns were lit, it was a little dark. However, under the illumination of the moonlight, it was a little more tranquil. In this late spring and early summer night, it eased the dry heat a little. He walked in confidently and went around the corridor. As soon as he arrived at the courtyard, he saw a figure standing under a bright red lantern. Her snow-white dress was hanging on the ground in a beautiful arc. In the dark courtyard, there was only a cluster of firelight, all of which fell on the person standing there. It seemed to be the only bright color in the world. Moonlight, lights, and beauties. It was a beautiful scene. Such a beautiful scenery was only waiting for one person to appreciate the painting. However, the person with slightly lowered eyebrows did not wait for anyone to speak. That's right, this person was Liang Danjing. Why was it different from what she had expected? Although it was a bit out of her expectations, Liang Danjing quickly stabilized her mind. For tonight, she had put in a lot of effort. She slowly raised her head and the long hair on her shoulders slowly fell down with her movements. Her eyes were filled with light and her lips curved up at the perfect moment. The silver-white moonlight fell on her body. Her snow-white clothes and black hair were graceful, matching the image of a fairy in the hearts of most men. Your Highness. She softly opened her mouth. Her eyes were filled with shyness and gentle affection. She called him His Highness and not her older cousin. Older cousin, it represented the relationship between the two of them. As for His Highness, it implied that the two of them only had a pure male and female relationship. One name, but it was different. But when her eyes slowly moved to the person 10 steps away, her body froze. The person in front of her had never looked at her. When she shyly raised her head to look at him, he finally turned his head and coldly looked at her, as if she was just a wooden stake beside him. Liang Danjing felt like she was acting out a play, but there were no spectators. Xiao Su indifferently looked at her. What is it? It was already the end of spring, but because of his emotionless voice, she felt a chill from head to toe. Under Xiao Su's gaze, a normal girl's legs would tremble and they would not dare to approach him. But Liang Danjing was not a normal noble girl. Although she panicked, she quickly steadied her breathing. She slowly walked towards Xiao Su, each step carrying the graceful elegance of a noble family. She only stopped when she was 3 steps away from Xiao Su. Your Highness, yesterday I had Lu Ji invite Your Highness. Your Highness said to meet the next day, so I took the liberty to invite you. Your Highness has come, so I am very honored. Liang Danjing slightly raised her head and her eyes fell on him, looking very graceful. Xiao Su looked over the girl in front of him. Why are you looking for this king? He disdained to say his words a second time, but seeing that she was his imperial mother's niece, Xiao Su impatiently repeated his question. Liang Danjing felt a chill in her face. This kind of chill penetrated her bones. She could clearly feel the other party's impatience. Her face was a bit stiff. Although she was not a peerless beauty, but in terms of beauty, she did not dare to say that she was the most beautiful in the capital, but she was not in the top 3. But the person in front of her did not have the slightest bit of tenderness for the fairer sex and treated her as a passerby that could be casually dismissed. Even Liang Danjing, who pretended to be gentle and skilled, could not calm down. The other party did not even take a move, but she was already flustered. But for her plan, she had to calm down. Liang Danjing naturally could not use the excuse of reminiscing, otherwise the other party would definitely turn around and leave. Your Highness, I want to talk to you about the King of England's imperial concubine. She said with a warm smile. When she said the 3 words imperial concubine of the King of England, Liang Danjing's eyes flashed with a touch of unwillingness. But today, Xiao Su punished Mama Hong and the others because of this title. So, to achieve great things, one does not care about trifles. Today, Chu Qingyan was worthy of this title, but in the future, it was not certain. What qualifications do you have to talk about it? These words were so condescending, so overbearing and arrogant. But when Xiao Su said these words, his expression was as calm as water, making the listener unconsciously feel that he was just narrating a fact. Liang Danjing's face instantly paled. Fortunately, she was wearing a white dress and with the moonlight, it was not so obvious. She did not expect that he would be so straightforward, and make people unable to back down. The hands that were folded on her waist slightly tightened. Although her heart was suffering a strong sense of humiliation, she quickly answered, perhaps my current status is not qualified to talk about His Highness's imperial concubine. But today, I invited you to help His Highness and the King of England's imperial concubine. Let's hear it. Xiao Su had already planned to leave, but he still asked. Just now, he had already seen that this woman was extremely angry, but she calmed down in an instant. It could be seen that she was very forbearing. Xiao Su felt that it was very rare for the Liang family to raise such a woman, but that was all. He was more concerned about what Liang Danjing would say about Ayan. At this time, Chu Qingyan, who had walked to the end of the corridor, looked at the 2 people under the light, and her footsteps instantly froze in place. Chapter 808. Aunt doesn't seem to like Princess Consort very much. Liang Danjing was stating a fact, but when she said this, she could clearly feel the pressure coming from Xiao Su. If she had not expected this, her legs would have turned to jelly in front of him. The people who came from the battlefield bathed in blood had an iron-blooded aura and might that made people tremble in fear. But if I have a way to change Aunt's opinion of Princess Consort, is your highness willing to listen? Liang Danjing said in a sincere tone. When she finished speaking, the pressure on her was lifted. Chu Qingyan silently stood at the end of the corridor and looked at the scene on the other side. As far as the eye could see, the two of them stood shoulder to shoulder like a perfect couple. Her body froze slightly and it took her a while to wake up in the cold wind. She was far away, so she couldn't hear their conversation, but it didn't matter what they said. Because she saw Big Ice Block follow Liang Danjing to the small courtyard. To follow or not to follow? These two choices circled in her heart, but her body moved before her thoughts. Chu Qingyan slowly followed after them not long after they left. Big Ice Block's internal energy was above hers, so she could not follow too close. The two walked to the pavilion outside the corridor. Liang Danjing turned around and her gaze landed on the zither table. She had an elegant smile. Your Highness, I have been studying the zither under the zither Saint Master since I was young. It has been 10 years. But it is easy to find a zither friend, but hard to find a soulmate. Is your Highness willing to listen to me perform a song? When Xiao Su came in, his gaze did not land on the elaborately decorated pavilion. He looked indifferently at the night outside. Hearing this, he raised an eyebrow. Miss Liang is so refined. It is a pity that Ben Wang likes to play with swords and sticks. I'm afraid that Miss Liang has found the wrong person. This Wang will leave. This reply was very straightforward. Liang Danjing smiled. Your Highness, if you can satisfy my wish, I will tell you the method. She saw the two standing in the pavilion in the small courtyard. She did not go close and just leaned against the sycamore tree, silently watching. Soon, zither music sounded. Good zither skills. Chu Qingyan's gaze focused slightly. This zither skill was comparable to Hua Yu's. The women of the Liang family were indeed not ordinary. Did Big Ice Cube come here tonight just to listen to music? Looking at the two people in the pavilion, one standing and one sitting, Chu Qingyan recalled the past. On the boat that was traveling on the river, he taught her how to play the guqin step by step. Although she had some success in the end, because she was not interested in playing the guqin, she rarely touched the guqin that he had given her. Now that she saw Liang Dan playing the guqin quietly and elegantly, she wondered if Big Ice Cube's type was this kind of elegant girl. She came back to her senses and looked at the pavilion again. At this time, Liang Danjing, who had stood up at some point, walked towards Xiao Su. Suddenly, her body swayed and she fell into Xiao Su's arms. Chu Qingyan closed her eyes slightly. There was no longer any need for her to stand here. She turned around and left without looking at the scene in the pavilion. Tathagata's light footsteps were a little more superficial. She turned around so quickly that she did not see that the moment Liang Danjing fell into Xiao Su's arms, she was pushed away by Xiao Su's inner strength. However, from her angle, the two of them seemed to be stuck together. In fact, Liang Danjing did not even touch the corner of his clothes. Liang Danjing was pushed away. She held on to the pillar beside her with both hands, so she did not fall to the ground in a sorry state. Liang Danjing did not expect to be pushed away so ruthlessly. She originally thought that no matter how cold Xiao Su's personality was, it was impossible for him to be so cold to someone who threw herself into his arms. However, when her gaze fell on the empty end of the corridor, a dark light of victory flashed in her eyes. No matter what, she had achieved her goal. Miss Liang, may I ask what method is? His cold gaze fell onto Liang Danjing's body. Xiao Su did not care about her tricks at all because this kind of thing was common since he was young. After Liang Danjing steadied herself, although her face was a bit pale, she was very calm and quickly returned to normal. It was as if the person who fell was not her. Your Highness, thank you for being willing to listen to my zither song and fulfill my wish. Then I'll tell you, the method is actually very simple. Liang Danjing purposely paused. She was not surprised to see Xiao Su's serious expression of listening. She had a plan in her heart. The importance that her big cousin placed on Chu Qingyan seemed to surpass the results of her aunt's investigation. If that was the case, then Chu Qingyan would be a stumbling block for her young family and had to be removed. Then your highness will take a concubine. Her voice was not loud, but it was very resolute. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with impatience. He never thought that he would be played by a little girl. What kind of method was this? Take a concubine? Take who? The Liang family? Or you? Xiao Su's voice carried a hint of mockery as he asked. Liang Danjing heard the disdain in his words and almost lost the smile on her face. Being disdained by a man like this, even if she had the 7 apertures exquisite heart, she still could not accept it. But since things had reached this point, she had no choice but to continue. Your Highness, Liang Danjing's face was gentle, but her voice was more serious than before. The Liang family is aunt's maternal family. If there is someone from the Liang family by your Highness' side, then aunt will be reassured. The Liang family will also give you a helping hand so that you will have no worries. If these obscure words came from the mouth of a man, Xiao Su would not be surprised. But when it came from the mouth of a 16-year-old girl, he was a bit surprised. But when he thought about how the Liang family could cultivate such a talented woman like his Muhu, then it would not be a problem to cultivate a few more. But this kind of intelligent and daring girl, who did not show any fear under his deliberate coercion, if she did not cross his bottom line, maybe he would see her in a different light. What a pity. If Ben Wang wants something, I will personally take it and will not use the hands of others. As for the method you mentioned, for the sake of the Liang family, Ben Wang will pretend that I did not hear it. If Ben Wang hears it again, I believe that with your intelligence, you will be able to guess the consequences. Xiao Su's cold gaze swept across Liang Danjing's face. She felt her neck become cold, as if there was an invisible knife on it, pointing at her life. She froze in place, as if she was frozen to the point of not daring to move. After turning around, Xiao Su left behind a sentence before leaving the pavilion. Your zither, compared to Ayan, is thousands of miles away. What Liang Danjing didn't know was that in Xiao Su's eyes, even if his little fellow was singing like a crow, in his ears, it was the best sound of nature. How could he allow himself to be outdone? Liang Danjing had just been released from that suffocating pressure, but his words made her face turn pale. This was the first time she had been so thoroughly humiliated by someone. How could that person who only knew how to play with swords and spears compare to her zither skills? Chu Qingyan, she must get rid of her. Chapter 809. Chu Qingyan was in a daze. She kept walking until she reached a door. When she looked up, she realized that she was in Sima Jun's courtyard. How did she end up here? At this time, Sima Jun should be resting. Chu Qingyan turned around. Since you're here, why don't you enter? A gentle voice rang out. Chu Qingyan stopped and looked in the direction of the voice. She saw an elegant and languid person on the steps. She was casually wearing a coat and looking at her with a smile. Chu Qingyan suddenly understood why she was here. It was because this person gave off an inexplicable sense of familiarity and closeness. Just like now, just by hearing her voice, she calmed down. Did I disturb your rest? She walked over in a daze and did not deliberately hide her footsteps. People who practiced martial arts had excellent hearing, so it was normal for Sima Jun to hear her. Sima Jun yawned and leaned against a pillar. She said with a sleepy expression, since you're so noisy, why don't you get up? Why didn't you sleep in the middle of the night and came to my place? Also, who was playing the zither just now? There must be a hole in the head. Not only did it disturb my sleep, that mournful tune, was it a mournful wail? Sima Jun was very grumpy when she woke up. Actually, what woke her up was not Chu Qingyan's arrival, but Liang Danjing's tune. She happened to see the dazed Chu Qingyan when she came out for a stroll. She did not want to pay attention to her, but she could not bear it and called out to her. She did not expect that the melodious zither music in her ears would become a mournful wail in Sima Jun's eyes. She could not help but laugh, and the gloominess in her chest lessened. You don't know how to play the zither? Although it was a question, Chu Qingyan used a tone full of certainty. Sima Jun was stunned and then became unhappy. She only wanted to make this frowning girl laugh, but she did not expect to be exposed. She immediately widened her eyes. When Tanning heard Chu Qingyan's words, she smiled and replied, "My mistress doesn't like to play the zither." Although Master Ji wanted to teach her, mistress refused to cooperate. In the end, Master Ji could only give up. "Tanning, no one will treat you as a mute if you don't speak." When Sima Jun said this, his tone wasn't as unbridled as before. Chu Qingyan realized that Sima Jun would change whenever he mentioned this era master. It was really strange. Then from now on, Tanning will be a piece of wood. "Master, please continue." Tanning stuck out her tongue and then stood in the shadows at the side, wholeheartedly being her piece of wood. "All right, do you want me to have a drink with you?" Sima Jun glanced at his mischievous subordinate, then turned around and asked sincerely. In her opinion, the little girl in front of her needed wine to relieve her worries. Chu Qingyan shook her head. "If you don't want to go back to your room so soon, then take a walk with me." Sima Jun hesitated between the warm blanket and the lovelorn little sister in front of her. She closed her eyes and reluctantly chose the latter. In the courtyard, there was an old tree that was as tall as 5 or 6 people. On the thick tree trunk, there were 2 beautiful women sitting on it. Their expressions were unrestrained and unrestrained. Although they didn't look like the young ladies of noble families, they exuded an air of nobility and elegance. No one would dare to use the word vulgar to describe them. "What are you thinking about?" When they were strolling downstairs, the people beside them didn't say anything. In the end, she suggested to come up and sit. Until now, the 2 of them had already sat for the time needed to brew a cup of tea. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she took a deep breath and spread out her hands. "I'm absorbing the essence of heaven and earth, bathing in the moonlight of the night." Hearing such annoying words, Sima Jun knocked her head without holding back. "I'm really stupid to not sleep on the big bed and accompany you to go crazy here." Chu Qingyan covered her head and looked at her bitterly. Sima Jun also admitted defeat under her gaze. "All right, since you don't want to say it, then don't say it." When she heard this, Chu Qingyan turned to look at Sima Jun. She tilted her head slightly and asked in a half-serious, half-joking tone, "Sima, do you believe in a pair for life?" The teasing smile on Sima Jun's face gradually faded. Her gaze was distant. "Although I don't know why you're asking this, I'm afraid the answer I have is not what you want." Chu Qingyan was silent. Sima Jun looked at her, her eyes lonely. "Perhaps there is such a thing in this world, but I've never believed that I would be so lucky to meet it. Since that's the case, I might as well not believe it. This way, I won't have any expectations. Since there's no expectations, there won't be any expectations." When she said this, Sima Jun's gaze turned to the dark sky. She said faintly, "If there's no expectations, there won't be any disappointment. Love is poison. I've always cherished my life, so I don't touch it." Chu Qingyan didn't expect that she would see such a different Sima Jun when she blurted out her question. The answer was indeed not what she wanted, but this answer surprised her. This Sima Jun was even more shocking than what she knew. Just as Chu Qingyan didn't know how to reply, Sima Jun's expression changed. She winked at her. "There are some things that you can't answer by asking others. What's important is that you answer with your own heart. Little girl, your feelings for him have sprouted. But if you suffer a setback, perhaps your relationship will become stronger. I wish you good luck." With that, Sima Jun jumped down from the tree with her back facing her. She yawned and waved at her. "Go back and rest. I'm leaving tomorrow. Don't laze around in bed and miss the time to send me off." Chu Qingyan looked at her valiant back and smiled. Yesterday, Sima Jun had asked her to postpone her departure for a day. She had agreed. She was leaving tomorrow. Perhaps it was because of Sima Jun's departure that she couldn't bear to part with him. Coupled with what had happened tonight, she had unknowingly walked here. She leaned against the tree trunk and looked up at the moonlight. Her eyes were filled with confusion. The scenes that had happened in the corridor and in the pavilion tonight kept replaying in front of her eyes. Sima Jun was right. Her answer wasn't what she wanted. But would the real answer be what she wanted? Big Ice Cube said that he wanted her to trust him. But when she turned around, something like this happened. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and covered her eyes with her hands. The moonlight in front of her made her think of the two silhouettes standing under the light. And not far from the old tree, a dark figure was hidden in the darkness. No one noticed it. It was Xiao Su who had rushed over. When he came back from the side courtyard, he remembered his harsh tone and changed direction to the little fellow's courtyard. But Xining said that she had followed him out when he left. She was still injured. How could she run around? Later on, Turin came to report that she was in Sima Jun's courtyard. He was worried and immediately rushed over. But he heard her question to Sima Jun, little fellow, do you still not believe me? The person on the tree covered her eyes in loneliness. And the person under the tree looked up with sadness. Chapter 8:10. Hua Xiao had been cooped up in the manor for an entire day. Her emotions went from shame to confusion, to anxiety, and then to shame. Because the person she was waiting for was nowhere to be seen. This stinky man, is he really not going to admit it? She slammed the table. When Hua Xiao said this, her tone was furious, but if one looked carefully, one could hear a bit of disappointment. Her personal maid, Xiao Yu, walked in at this time. Seeing that her mistress had not left the manor for an entire day, she smiled and suggested. Mistress, I heard that a new restaurant opened on East Street. Do you want to try it? Not going, not going. Then Lin Lang Pavilion has some new things. Do you want to take a look? Not going, not going. Seeing that her mistress did not have her usual arrogance and was dispirited, Xiao Yu could not help but be surprised. Hua Xiao was furious, but there was no movement in the Lin manor. She only knew that Lin Fengyi had not returned to the Lin manor since he left that morning. She could not help but tug at the things in her hands and grit her teeth. What could be more important than her? Xiao Yu watched as her mistress undid the Southern Sea pearl necklace one by one. It was unbelievable. Was her mistress crazy? Hua Xiao suddenly stood up. She was not the kind of person who would die for a man. So what if Lin Fengyi did not admit it? She would continue to be the young master of the Hua family, and he would continue to be the magistrate of Jiangnan. In the future, they would go their separate ways. She could only blame herself for being careless. People said that it takes two to clap. She was also at fault. She could not put all the blame on Lin Fengyi. She was not a weak girl from Jiangnan who valued her chastity more than her life. This time, she would just treat it as being bitten by a dog. She had learned a lesson. Thinking of this, Hua Xiao bitterly wiped the corner of her eyes and strode out. Xiao Yu, I am going out. If my father is looking for me, ask Ah Fu to pass the message. Xiao Yu quickly agreed. She walked so quickly that no one saw the redness in her eyes. Once Hua Xiao left the Hua manor, she went straight to the Chu manor. Yesterday, she had been tormented by that stinky man, Lin Fengyi, until she had no strength at all. In addition, there were those ambiguous marks on her neck, so she could only rest at home. Moreover, she had lost her virginity and was in a daze. She had no energy to think about those serious matters at all. Now that she had put the matter at the back of her mind, she remembered that Qing Yanluo and the cargo ships were still being held captive. She immediately rushed to the Chu estate. But when she saw Chu Qingyan, she couldn't help but be shocked by the two big dark circles under her eyes. Were you a thief last night? How did you make yourself so listless? Hua Xiao suddenly forgot what she wanted to say, and pointed at her dark circles and asked. Chu Qingyan leaned back in her chair. Hearing her question, she rubbed her eyes subconsciously. It's nothing. Maybe I drank too much tea last night and couldn't sleep. Last night, when she was lying on the bed, her mind was filled with the scene under the light. She tossed and turned, unable to sleep the entire night. Hua Xiaoli looked at her doubtfully when she heard that. Chu Qingyan's hand stiffened. She knew that Hua Xiao must have noticed something, so she immediately changed the topic. Why are you here so early in the morning? With this reminder, Hua Xiao finally remembered the purpose of her visit. A deep sense of guilt surfaced on her face. Qingyan, I'm here to offer a humble apology. I was the one who asked Lin Fengyi to keep the news of Cheng Yanluo and the cargo ships a secret. I wanted to rely on myself to get him to release them, but unfortunately, she couldn't help but hang her head at the end. It was a pity that in the end, there was nothing left of her, but she still couldn't get Lin Fengyi to release them. Only then did Chu Qingyan remember this matter. She had been so busy with the arrival of the people from the capital that she had forgotten to inform Hua Xiao. Right at this moment, a crisp voice sounded. I heard that Xiao Xiao is here, so I specially came to welcome you. Hua Xiao abruptly raised her head and looked at Chu Qingyan in astonishment. Under her smiling gaze, she immediately turned to the door. She saw Cheng Yanluo striding into the room, dressed in a bright green dress. Weren't you detained? Hua Xiao couldn't believe that she would see her here. When Cheng Yanluo saw the look on Hua Xiao's face, she thought that it was because she hadn't seen her for too long and missed her. She giggled and said, I came back yesterday, but the moment I came back, I saw that Qingyan was injured. I was so focused on treating her that I forgot to inform you. Why? Do you miss me very much? Hua Xiao felt that something wasn't right, so she turned to look at Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan, who had been called out by Cheng Yanluo, smiled and met Hua Xiao's gaze. Her eyes curved into crescents as she explained, it's like this. Lord Lin is investigating a case and needs to conduct a strict inspection of the traveling merchants coming and going at the docks. Lord Lin informed us that our cargo ship had been detained. He said that as long as there were no problems after the inspection, we would immediately release the ship. I wanted to inform you, but you went to look for Lord Lin. I thought that Lord Lin would tell you about this, so I didn't send anyone to inform you. When Hua Xiao heard this, she felt as if a bolt from the blue had struck her. She had been fooled by that bastard Lin Fengyi. He had been completely fooled. Lin Fengyi clearly knew that she was looking for him because of the detention of the ship, but he pretended to be ignorant and watched her scratch her ears and cheeks, doing all sorts of foolish things. If he had told her clearly, how could such a ridiculous thing have happened? At this moment, Hua Xiao hated Lin Fengyi to the core. When Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she noticed that the person in front of her was turning pale. She asked belatedly, didn't Lord Lin tell you clearly? Hua Xiao clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. That bastard! With that, Hua Xiao stomped her feet and ran out without another word. Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo were left looking at each other in dismay. What's going on? However, Hua Xiao had always been reliable. Although the two of them were surprised, they let her do as she pleased. They guessed that the young couple had a quarrel. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo sat down in front of Chu Qingyan. She glanced at her expression and hit the nail on the head. You didn't sleep last night? Chu Qingyan was slightly taken aback. As expected, nothing could be hidden from a doctor like her. There were many things in her heart that she wanted to vent. However, when she thought of how Yanluo had pointed at Big Ice and scolded her yesterday, she knew that Yanluo might turn the entire Chu estate upside down if she spoke. Everyone knew that the two young misses of the Liang family had come to Jiangnan for the sake of Sima Zhao. However, if Yanluo helped her vent her anger, it would directly expose their motives. When the time came, things might get messed up. Just as she was thinking of an excuse to muddle through, Xining came in with a servant girl. Master, Miss Biao's servant girl, Lu Ji, said that she has an urgent matter to discuss with you. Xining bowed and reported. Chu Qingyan nodded. Xining retreated to the side, revealing Lu Ji behind her. Lu Ji stepped forward and said, "Your Highness, my master has an urgent matter to discuss with you. I wonder if Your Highness can move to the side courtyard." Chu Qingyan subconsciously frowned. What could Liang Danjing want from her at this time? Chapter 8:11. How impudent. My princess consort and your young miss are of higher status. How dare you ask the princess consort to lower herself to see your young miss? Qing Yanluo, who was sitting on the side, coldly snorted. She had heard about the Liang family's visit as soon as she came back. Coupled with the little lass's injury, she didn't need to think to know that these people were trying to push the little lass down from the princess consort position. Since she had come back, how could she let others bully the little lass? When Lu Ji first entered the Chu residence, she thought that everyone here was gentle and soft. She thought that they were all weak-willed people. Now, this woman who had appeared out of nowhere had given her a hard time. Lu Ji sneaked a glance at Chu Qingyan and realized that she looked calm. She did not seem to be affected by the words of the people around her. To be able to become Liang Danjing's confidant, Lu Ji was not only reliable, but also good at reading people's expressions. Qing Yanluo's clothes weren't ordinary and she could sit beside Chu Qingyan, so her status wasn't low. But she was the head maid of the Liang family and had a high temperament. She didn't argue with Qing Yanluo and turned to Chu Qingyan with a respectful expression. "Esteemed princess consort, it's like this. Last night, my master caught a cold and shouldn't be exposed to the wind. That's why this servant came to invite esteemed princess consort over. I hope esteemed princess consort can understand." It was a good thing that her young miss had told her this before she came out. Otherwise, she would have been scolded here. Lu Ji admired her young miss very much. Caught a cold. Chu Qingyan thought of the scene she saw last night. Her eyes moved slightly before she lowered them. Liang Danjing wanted to use the maid's mouth to tell her that she caught a cold playing the zither for the big ice cube last night. Was she trying to show off to her? Qing Yanluo looked at Chu Qingyan's expression and felt that something was wrong. She immediately questioned, "It's almost summer. How could she catch a cold?" Lu Ji sighed. "My young miss's body has been weak since she was young, so she has never stopped falling sick." There was nothing wrong with her words. Chu Qingyan and Qing Yanluo looked at each other. This invitation was a bit thought-provoking. Qing Yanluo, what do you plan to do? Chu Qingyan, what do you think? Qing Yanluo, I think this is a trap. You should decline. Chu Qingyan, they've already come knocking, isn't it inappropriate not to go? Qing Yanluo, then be careful. After the two exchanged glances, Chu Qingyan stood up and said to Lu Ji, "If that's the case, let's go." 2. Lu Ji quickly bowed and thanked him. After a few hours, she once again stepped into this side courtyard. His state of mind was completely different from last night. When they passed by the pavilion, Chu Qingyan's gaze fell on it for a moment before she looked away. Soon, they arrived at the door of the room. Lu Ji made a sound from the outside, and when she heard a reply from the person inside, she pushed the door open and led Chu Qingyan in. The moment Chu Qingyan stood outside the door, she suddenly had the illusion that the person inside was the host and she was the guest. She smiled self-deprecatingly. When she stepped in, her expression returned to its usual calm and composed state. "Sister Chu, you're here." She heard a joyful voice the moment she entered, followed by a few coughs. Chu Qingyan looked over and saw Liang Danjing coughing softly with a handkerchief over her mouth. Her eyes rippled and she quickly walked up to her. "Cousin Jing, why are you coughing so badly? Did you send for a doctor?" The words Cousin Jing clearly indicated her identity. She was her eldest cousin brother's wife, her cousin-in-law. Liang Danjing's hand paused for a moment, then she removed the handkerchief and forced a smile at Chu Qingyan. "It's nothing. It's just a small problem. I'm used to it. Lu Ji has already brewed medicine for me today. I've made Sister Chu worry." Chu Qingyan's gaze fell on her rosy cheeks. Her gaze deepened, then she looked away and smiled faintly. Cousin Jing, you don't have to be so polite. You're His Highness' cousin, so you're also my cousin. There's no need to be so formal with me. Liang Danjing tightened her grip on the handkerchief. She was sick of Chu Qingyan talking about her identity. Sooner or later, her identity would change. Thank you, Sister Chu. Please take a seat. She smiled and used the word Sister Chu. She looked so innocent, as if she didn't realize that it was unreasonable. But she had to call her that. She didn't want to call her cousin-in-law or Wang Fei at this time. Chu Qingyan could hear the hidden meaning in her words, but she wouldn't argue with her on this. She smiled and sat down on a chair on the side. Liang Danjing's eyes turned. Her fingers stroked the handkerchief as she sighed. Actually, it's also sister's fault for being useless. Last night, I was only focused on learning from eldest cousin and forgot that the night wind was cold. I didn't put on more clothes, so I caught a cold. The night wind is quite strong. You're weak, so you should go out less at night in the future. Since she was her cousin-in-law, she naturally had to act. Chu Qingyan said in a concerned tone. Liang Danjing's eyes flashed. She originally wanted to use this matter to sow discord between Chu Qingyan and eldest cousin, but she didn't expect her to be so nonchalant. Was she too good at enduring, or was she too stupid to understand these words? Sister will remember. Chu Qingyan followed up with a few more words of concern. Liang Danjing probed a few more words, but she found that she didn't listen. Her heart was a bit unsettled. In the end, she directly threw out her trump card. Older sister Chu, you're so smart, so you should know why my sister and I came to Jiangnan. Her face was flushed, as if she was a bit shy. Chu Qingyan sighed. This girl finally got to the point. She thought she would have to keep going in circles with her. I know that you rarely go out. Now that you're taking advantage of the fireworks in Jiangnan in March, you can experience the local customs, visit relatives, and see the scenery. It's quite good. As the saying goes, it's better to travel 10,000 li than to read 10,000 books. Chu Qingyan replied with a smile. Liang Danjing was stunned. She had already said it so bluntly, but this person was still beating around the bush. Sure enough, this Chu Qingyan couldn't be underestimated. No wonder Mama Hong and the others fell into her hands. That's only one of the reasons, but the main reason is another. Liang Danjing said shyly. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she knew that she was going to lift the veil. We were ordered by Aunt to go to Jiangnan to serve by His Highness' side. Right now, us two sisters have already rested in the manor for a few days, and the fatigue from the journey has already disappeared. We originally didn't want to mention this matter and worry older sister Chu, but this was Aunt's order, so us sisters didn't dare to disobey. So today, we boldly ask older sister Chu about this matter. We hope older sister Chu will forgive us. She was recommending herself to be the pillow. And she was openly declaring war on her, the main wife. Chu Qingyan sneered in her heart. Sure enough, shameless people were invincible. Chapter 8:12. Chu Qingyan looked up at her with a normal expression. I'm afraid that cousin will have to speak to His Highness about this matter. I can't make the decision. Liang Danjing seemed to have already expected her to answer like this. She smiled calmly. Younger sister knows that eldest cousin will have to make the decision, but, speaking up to this point, Liang Danjing paused, as if she wanted to keep people in suspense. Then she slowly said, if elder sister doesn't agree, even if it's in front of His Highness, he won't agree. Chu Qingyan recalled their intimate actions last night. Hearing her say this now, she couldn't help but twitch the corner of her lips. Liang Danjing's motive for saying this was probably to disgust her. His Highness never allows anyone to interfere in his matters, so I'm afraid that I can't help you. Chu Qingyan deflected the question back to her. Liang Danjing looked at Chu Qingyan with a deeper meaning in her eyes. For this matter, if elder sister can't help, then younger sister feels that no one else can. Younger cousin, what do you mean? Could it be that you think that I'm purposely refusing to help? Chu Qingyan heard the implied meaning in her words and her expression couldn't help but darken. Younger sister doesn't dare. Although that was what she said, Liang Dongjing's words were full of suspicion. Chu Qingyan scoffed in her heart. Half leaning on the back of the chair, her expression was indifferent. Younger cousin, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. If you have something to say, just say it. Liang Danjing looked at Chu Qingyan's calm face and sighed in her heart. This person was stubborn. No matter how she provoked her, she didn't lose her composure. With such a calm and steady attitude, how was she going to continue with her act? Since that was the case, she might as well speak her mind openly. Elder sister Chu, you can't compare to us. At least you grew up by His Highness's side. Although His Highness's temperament is rather cold, you've been with him for so many years, so you have some status in his heart. Perhaps he won't listen to other people's words, but if it's you, then it might be different. Liang Dongjing's face was sincere, but in her tone, there was a hidden meaning. Asking her to persuade the ice cube to take a concubine? Chu Qingyan felt that unless her brain had been kicked by a donkey, she would never do such a thing. She had already tried her best to calm down, but this person just wouldn't stop. Chu Qingyan was also a little annoyed. Cousin, there's nothing I can do. You should talk to His Highness yourself. Chu Qingyan got up and prepared to leave. She didn't want to get involved in these matters at all. So what if they acknowledged her as Princess Consort? Whether or not to take a concubine was never up to the wife to decide. The most important thing was still up to the man. If they wanted to, they couldn't stop them even if they wanted to. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that the women of this era were very sad. Because they were obedient to their fathers at home and obedient to their husbands when they were married. They had never lived for themselves for a day. Just as she was about to leave, Liang Dongjing's voice rang in her ears, mocking her. Chu Qingyan, do you really think I need you to help me? Chu Qingyan turned to look at her, then what did you mean by saying so much? I just wanted to see if you were qualified to be His Highness Princess Consort. I also wanted to see if you had the magnanimity to tolerate others. Liang Danjing looked at her without showing any weakness. She really spoke in a righteous manner. Chu Qingyan sometimes couldn't understand where these people got their courage from. Liang Danjing had a bit of ridicule on her face. It's a pity that you came from a poor family and are so petty. No wonder aunt doesn't like you. A daughter-in-law who doesn't know how to produce offspring for the royal family will be replaced in the end. It's not easy to be a royal daughter-in-law and His Highness can't only favor you. You should have seen last night that His Highness isn't as infatuated as you think. She didn't want to fall out so early, but last night's results didn't seem to be as good as she thought. But at least it left a thorn in her heart. Since that thorn was already buried, it was better to stab harder. Perhaps there would be an unexpected result. The faint smile on Chu Qingyan's face disappeared. After beating around the bush for so long, it turned out she was waiting for her here. Young Miss Liang, you're right, but I've never seen an unmarried girl say such shameless words and chase after someone. You're the first one. Chu Qingyan didn't want to speak so harshly and didn't want to argue with her, but this person always thought she was better than others and kept pushing her into the mud. Even if she was a clay statue, she still had a bit of a temper. As expected, these words made Liang Dongjing's face turn white and her face turn red. After all, Liang Danjing was still a virgin who had yet to experience the affairs of the world. Moreover, she was a pampered young lady. She had never been criticized so bluntly. Liang Danjing was speechless for a moment. Chu Qingyan felt it was very boring and she didn't want to stay any longer, so she turned to leave. After cultivating for so many years, she didn't think she would be provoked by a girl who was still wet behind the ears. When she walked to the door, Liang Dongjing's arrogant voice changed and she chased after her. Chu Qingyan, you only have an advantage over us because you've been with His Highness for a few more years. As long as we stay by His Highness' side, it won't be long before your position will be taken by us. You should know that His Highness is the eldest son of the imperial family. What kind of path does he have in the future? Now that the princes are fighting both openly and covertly, His Highness needs someone to support him from behind, and our Liang family is his most important right-hand man. The marriage alliance will be put on the agenda sooner or later. At that time, can you still keep your position? Besides, even without the Liang family, there will be the Wu family, Qin family, and Li family. You can hold them off for a while, but can you hold them off for a lifetime? Every word was heavy as it smashed at her. Chu Qingyan suddenly turned around, her eyes as cold as ice. These are all things you've thought of for him. Have you asked if he's willing? Liang Dongjing's lips curved slightly, her tone cold. Stupid princes, if you don't fight, only death awaits you. Don't tell me you want to watch him walk down the path of death. Moreover, it's not bad for a man to aspire to travel far and wide, but who would give up that supreme position and live a life of wandering about? Chu Qingyan, His Highness is a man of great talent and bold vision. I hope you won't become his stumbling block. Chu Qingyan's face suddenly paled and she froze on the spot. She finally understood what it meant to hurt people without seeing blood with words. Since elder sister still has things to do, then younger sister won't keep elder sister. Elder sister, take care. After Liang Danjing finished speaking, her expression was gentle and virtuous. She didn't look like the person who had said those sarcastic words just now. Before she came to Jiangnan, her aunt had given her instructions. First, she wanted eldest cousin to agree to take a secondary consort. Second, she wanted eldest cousin and Chu Qingyan to have animosity between each other. If she could get rid of her, it would be even better. Chapter 8:13. Master, I heard from Xining that the young princess consort went to the side courtyard. Huo Ling stood in front of the table and reported. Xiao Su raised his head. Why would she go to the side courtyard for no reason? Huo Ling shook his head. This subordinate isn't sure either. I only heard from the servants that the young princess consort's complexion was very bad when she left the side courtyard. Do you think Miss Biao bullied the young princess consort? That being said, Huo Ling didn't believe that the Liang family could climb over the young princess consort's head and behave so atrociously. The young princess consort should be thanking the heavens if she didn't bully others. Xiao Su also thought so, but he felt that something was wrong. Ask Ian to come over. Huo Ling immediately complied. When Chu Qingyan returned to her room, she found Qing Yanluo still sitting there with her legs crossed, leisurely drinking tea. Lass, why do you look so pale? Come over and let me take your pulse. Qing Yanluo raised her head and saw her enter. She put down her teacup and waved at her. Chu Qingyan shook her head and forced a smile. I'm fine. Qing Yanluo obviously didn't believe her. Just as she was about to ask, Jean Xian walked in from outside. Master, Miss Sima just sent someone to pass on a message. She asked this subordinate to inform you that they will be setting off in the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. After this morning's incident, she had almost forgotten about Sima Jun's departure. A thought flashed through her mind and she immediately called Xining in. Master, what are your orders? Xining asked in confusion. Chu Qingyan looked at her and ordered sternly, pack a luggage. I want to go with Sima Jun. Everyone in the room was stunned when they heard this. Jean Xian was the first to speak. Master, you don't have to do this. Su Yi and the rest will handle it. You can rest assured and wait for news in the residence. That's right, Master. Isn't this decision too sudden? Please reconsider. Xining immediately chimed in. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to stop them. I've already made up my mind. No one can change it. All of you, go and prepare. Jean Xian and Xining looked at each other and could only go down to prepare. Qing Yanluo hadn't said a word since Jean Xian came in. She had left Jiangnan for some time and didn't know what had happened in the mansion recently. She only knew that Sima Jun was rescued by the little girl on the side of the road. She hadn't asked the little girl about the story behind it. However, she wasn't without discernment. As soon as she heard the conversation between Jean Xian and Xining, she knew that it would be dangerous. Little girl, what's wrong with you? It's not like you to come up with ideas on the spur of the moment. Hearing the obvious disapproval in Yen Luo's words, Chu Qingyan turned around and looked at her deeply. There was a darkness in her eyes that no one could understand. Yen Luo, I am doing this for myself. Don't worry, I will come back in one piece. Yen Luo wanted to say something, but Xining and Jean Xian had already returned. Chu Qingyan took the bundle from Xining's hands and patted her head as a reward. Then, she left with Jean Xian without any reluctance. Cheng Yenluo sighed softly as she watched her leave. When the little girl went to the side courtyard, she went to find Xiao Su and quarreled with him. Of course, it was a one-sided declaration of war, and the other party didn't accept it at all. She came back in a fit of anger. She wanted the little girl to give Xiao Su the cold shoulder for a few days and let him know what it felt like to kick an iron plate. She didn't expect the little girl to disappear without a word. Why did she feel that there was something strange between the little girl and Xiao Su the moment they returned to Jiangnan? What exactly was going on? Was there something she didn't know? Cheng Yenluo frowned, puzzled. Sima Jun and the others were ready to set off. When they saw Chu Qingyan coming in from outside, they couldn't help but smile. You have a conscience, little girl. You're here to see us off. Chu Qingyan walked up to her and smiled. I'm not here to see you off. Then why? Sima Jun noticed the bundle she was carrying and seemed to have guessed the answer. Chu Qingyan patted the bundle on her shoulder and said casually, I don't think your journey will be easy, so I might as well help you to the end. I'll accompany you on this journey. So nice. Sima Jun raised her eyebrows. What do you think? Chu Qingyan smiled sweetly, then waved at Su Yi. Su Yi understood and quickly brought out 2 horses from the stables. Chu Qingyan quickly mounted the horses and said to Sima Jun, hurry up. Otherwise, it'll be dark and we can't leave the city. With that, she took the lead and left through the back door. Even though she was full of doubts, Sima Jun still leaped onto the horse and pulled the reins to catch up with the people in front. Then, everyone followed suit. 20 to 30 horses left the city in no time. But at the intersection, Sima Jun stopped. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ride back to her side. What's the matter? We haven't walked for long and you can't walk anymore. Chu Qingyan deliberately teased her. Sima Jun leaned on the horse and looked at her leisurely. Tell me honestly. Did you quarrel with your highness and use me as an excuse to run away from home? Run away from home? Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Do you think I'll be so impulsive and senseless? A woman in love has always had an IQ of 0, Sima Jun said mercilessly. Chu Qingyan felt that if she talked to this person, she would always be insulted to the point of no return. If she didn't make things clear to her, she probably wouldn't leave. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but shrug her shoulders. There are a few annoying people in the residence and I don't want to interact with them. Moreover, I'm in a one-sided cold war with him. Don't tell me I'm not allowed to go out for a walk to relieve my boredom. Are you satisfied with this reason? What are you running away from? Sima Jun hit the nail on the head. Chu Qingyan stared at her innocently. I'm playing my own game. What's there to run away from? Sima Jun spread her hands. You've already put it this way. If I drag you down, wouldn't I be disloyal? You're a good brother. Chu Qingyan winked at Sima Jun. Then she swung the whip on the horse's back and rode the horse forward with a hearty laugh. Sima Jun stroked her chin as she looked at Chu Qingyan's figure. Interesting, interesting. After saying that, she caught up with Chu Qingyan and said in a clear voice, this place is spacious. Let's have a competition to see who can reach the bridge in front first. The loser will treat us to a meal. All right. It's a deal. Dust rose up, obscuring the figures in front. Hualing came to find Chu Qingyan on his master's orders, but he met Turan on the way. The two of them talked for a bit and wasted some time. When he arrived at Chu Qingyan's courtyard, he heard Xining say that his young princess had already left with Sima Jun. He secretly cursed in his heart. The young princess had left without an invitation. This matter was serious. He immediately sent people to chase after the young princess while he quickly flew to the study. He was afraid that he wouldn't make it in time, so he used his qinggong. This matter would create a storm in the manor. He had to quickly tell his master. Chu Qingyan didn't know that once she left, the entire Chu manor would be in chaos. Chapter 8:14. When Xiao Su received the news, Chu Qingyan's group had already left Jiangnan City. Xiao Su threw down the book in his hand and looked coldly at Huo Ling. What is going on here? His master rarely got angry. Only little Wang Fei was able to easily disturb his master's mood. When his master wasn't here, Huo Ling complained in his heart, but he could only endure his master's anger. He replied with fear and trepidation, "This subordinate also doesn't know what is going on," but this subordinate asked Xining. She said that little Wang Fei didn't have any plans to accompany us, but for some reason, after returning from the side courtyard, she made this decision. It should be a last-minute decision. Finishing, Huo Ling immediately hung his head. There was no need to guess. It was obvious that it had something to do with the side yard. At this time, Turin came in after receiving the news. But when he saw the atmosphere in the room was so gloomy and his master's face was so dark that people didn't dare to breathe, he couldn't help but give Huo Ling a look of inquiry. Turin whispered what he had just said to him. Turin was shocked and immediately turned to speak to his master behind the table. This subordinate doesn't think little Wang Fei is someone who doesn't know the severity of the situation. Something must have happened for little Wang Fei to do this. Ben Wang knows Ian's personality better than you. She wouldn't leave for no reason. Huo Ling, immediately investigate what happened before Ian left. Turin, immediately release the news. Have all the secret agents follow Ian and protect her safety. Xiao Su ordered in a heavy voice. Huo Ling and Turin quickly left with the order. When he was the only one left in the room, Xiao Su leaned back in his chair and furrowed his brows. Every time the little fellow went out, she would send someone to inform him. This time, she left so quietly. If he didn't ask Huo Ling to look for her, he wouldn't even know that she had left Jiangnan. Ever since he lost his temper at her yesterday, he felt guilty. However, her lack of trust made him angry. He wanted to wait for her to express herself, but in the end, he was defeated. He took the initiative to look for her, but he didn't expect this to be the result he was waiting for. Xiao Su wondered if he had done something wrong. He closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair, looking dejected. After a while, there was a sound of footsteps in the study. Xiao Su thought that Huo Ling had returned, but when he opened his eyes, he found that it was Qing Yanluo who had come by this morning. What is it? Xiao Su sat upright and looked at her. Qing Yanluo sat down at the side and raised an eyebrow at Xiao Su, taking pleasure in his misfortune. Then, she said leisurely, "Your Highness, you seem to be very distressed." Xiao Su said indifferently, "Are you here to make sarcastic remarks?" Qing Yanluo shrugged. "I'm here to see someone reaping what he sowed. I didn't expect to see His Royal Highness being so helpless. It's an eye-opener." Xiao Su snorted and didn't say anything else. If she hadn't been his little fellow's good friend for so many years, he would have thrown her out long ago. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Qing Yanluo understood. She stood up and walked in front of Xiao Su. Her voice was full of mockery. "Since you're not going to say anything, I'll say it. You probably didn't expect that the little girl would leave you without a word one day, right?" Qing Yanluo. Xiao Su looked at her coldly. His gaze was oppressive, and a cold wind blew. Qing Yanluo sighed in her heart. Sure enough, Xiao Su's Achilles' heel was the little girl. She had to teach her a lesson. "I know you. I'm Qing Yanluo." "I know. My name is Qing Yanluo, you don't have to stress it so much." Qing Yanluo turned around and chuckled. She seemed a little melancholic. Your Highness, this little girl isn't the kind of person who acts on impulse. She has her reasons for everything she does. You're the only thing she cares about other than her parents. She hasn't left your side for 5 years, but this happened. Have you ever wondered why? Xiao Su withdrew the cold aura around him. He couldn't deny that Qing Yanluo was telling the truth. A sense of helplessness welled up in his heart. Go on. Since she was here again today, she must have something to say to him. She had a good relationship with the little fellow. Perhaps she could know what the little fellow was thinking recently. Qing Yanluo turned around to face him. She wanted to say something to provoke him, but when she saw his desolate appearance, she paused and said, Your Highness, let me ask you a question. What do you think of the 2 young ladies of the Liang family? What does this have to do with Ian's departure? Xiao Su frowned. He felt that this question was ridiculous. You answer first. Qing Yanluo insisted. They're just 2 outsiders. Although Xiao Su was impatient, he still replied. Hearing this, Qing Yanluo looked at him suspiciously. Seeing that he didn't seem to be lying, she couldn't help but sigh. So that's how it is. Your Highness, I feel that this little girl has wronged you by throwing a tantrum. What do you mean? Xiao Su's expression was a little ugly. Qing Yanluo didn't want to beat around the bush. She said bluntly, Your Highness, you have a high IQ, but your EQ is worse than a random passerby. The 2 young ladies of the Liang family have received orders from your mother to head to Jiangnan. What are they planning? They are simply scheming. Everyone knows. But what about you? You haven't made your stance clear. You've only placed them in the courtyard. What do you want the little girl to think? Even if she trusts you, she can't do anything about other people's malicious instigation and fanning the flames. Xiao Su seemed to have comprehended something, but before he could make sense of it, Qing Yanluo spoke again. But just as you said, the 2 young ladies of the Liang family are outsiders. Their lethality is definitely not enough to make the little lass run away to avoid them. So, Qing Yanluo looked at him meaningfully, have you ever found a problem with yourself? For a moment, Xiao Su was at a loss for words and had nothing to say. After a moment of silence, Xiao Su was perplexed. Then why didn't she ask me? Qing Yanluo found it funny. Don't you know that other than saying one thing and thinking another, girls are good at being stubborn? She's just waiting for you to take the initiative to ask. Alright, that's all I have to say. Think about it carefully. After Qing Yanluo left, Xiao Su covered his face with his hands. He looked more tired than if he had just fought a war. And right at this time, Huo Ling walked in hurriedly. Master, this subordinate has found it. Xiao Su regained his composure in an instant. He looked sternly at the subordinate in front of him. Speak. Huo Ling immediately repeated the conversation between his little Wang Fei and Liang Danjing today. As he spoke, he looked at his master and found that his master's face was getting darker and darker. There was a sense of foreboding that a storm was coming. Huo Ling swallowed his saliva and threw out another heavy blow. Master, the young princess Consort knows that you went to the side courtyard last night. Not only does she know, but she also heard from the hidden guards that she went to the side courtyard. Boom! Xiao Su felt something explode in his mind. She looked so sad last night. So it was because. Chapter 8:15. Putting everything together, Xiao Su quickly understood what had happened. He had still underestimated the women of the Liang family. He had thought that if he left them to the side, as long as they didn't cause any trouble, he would send people to send them back to the capital. But he didn't expect them to be the same as his uncles, so ambitious. As expected, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Xiao Su suddenly stood up and threw down a sentence to Huo Ling, go to the side yard. After dealing with Mama Hong and the others, he thought it would have a deterrent effect on them, but they were bold enough to set their sights on him and even slandered the little fellow. These people had already stepped on his bottom line. Huo Ling knew his master was angry. He wanted to vent for the little princess Consort, but due to his status, now that his master had spoken, what was there to be afraid of? He happily followed. Older sister, I heard from the front yard that Chu Qingyan left the Fu this morning. It seems like she lost without a fight. When Liang Danbing heard the news, she immediately rushed over to share the good news with her older sister. Although Liang Danjing felt that Chu Qingyan's action of running away from home was a bit puzzling, but for them, it was undoubtedly a great piece of news. It seems like today is a good day, Liang Danjing happily said. At this time, Liang Danbing came in front of her and mysteriously said, "Older sister, since Chu Qingyan left this time, why don't we go all the way and make her?" As she said this, Liang Danbing made a gesture of slitting her throat. Liang Danjing shook her head in disapproval. "If it was any other time, I wouldn't object, but this time, I don't think it's appropriate and there's no need." Liang Danbing was a bit puzzled. Why? This is a good opportunity. I've been in contact with Chu Qingyan for a while and thought she would be a rival, but I didn't think it would be so easy to anger her. Although eldest cousin dotes on her, so what? Men generally like obedient and virtuous women. If they make too much noise, the man will lose interest. So in my opinion, even if Chu Qingyan comes back this time, she has already lost eldest cousin's favor. Chu Qingyan is just as so. So what are you worried about? What's there to be afraid of if he's not favored? Next, we just have to think of a way to capture eldest cousin's heart. Wouldn't the position of consort or consort be ours? Liang Danjing thought about how she had been scheming to get rid of her for the past 2 days. She didn't expect her to be so weak. She smiled complacently. In terms of intelligence, Chu Qingyan was still a little inexperienced. Liang Danbing couldn't help but widen her eyes. She gave Liang Danjing a thumbs up and said, "Sister, you're still the best." This time, it didn't take any effort at all to drive Chu Qingyan out of the mansion in anger. Let me widen my horizons. Younger sister now understands why mother always told me to look up to you. Liang Danjing calmly accepted her sister's praise. But at this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Who is so unruly? Be careful, I'll serve you properly. The two people in the room were shocked. Liang Danbing was the first to open her mouth and said arrogantly. Liang Danbing had completely forgotten that she was here. She was only a guest. Taking over the host like this made the people outside unhappy. When Liang Danbing's words fell, Wu Ling led Xiao Lai cavalry into the room in 2 rows, standing neatly on both sides. After seeing these people clearly, Liang Danbing's face turned white. Weren't these the guards by eldest cousin's side? Liang Danjing unhappily glared at her younger sister. She really couldn't accomplish anything, but was good at spoiling things. When the two of them recovered from their shock, they wanted to go up and greet him, but the main character had already walked in. It was as if he had walked out from hell, his entire body was covered in a murderous aura. Liang Danjing and Liang Danbing were raised in the boudoir. When had they ever seen Xiao Su with such an iron-blooded murderous aura? They were instantly frozen in place, as if taking another step forward would bring them into the abyss. Xiao Su walked in front of the two of them. His eyes swept over them and landed on Liang Danjing. He gave a cold snort. "Miss Liang is well read. You're proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. You even know a man's heart so well. You're truly worthy of being born in the Liang family." This was the first time they heard Xiao Su say such a long speech to them. They didn't expect it to be in this kind of situation. Although every word and sentence was full of praise, Liang Danjing's face turned pale little by little. These words, when used on a girl, could be said to be extremely harsh. It turned out that he had heard everything they said just now from outside. Liang Danjing suddenly had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall them. Although Liang Danbing was afraid, when she heard Xiao Su say this to her older sister, she immediately spoke up to defend her. "Eldest cousin, what do you mean?" "What do I mean?" Xiao Su glanced at Liang Danbing. "Benwang's meaning is clear enough." Liang Danbing took a step forward, wanting to argue, but her older sister stopped her. She was shocked. Older sister. Liang Danjing had already recovered her calm. She shook her head at her younger sister, then raised her head to smile at Xiao Su, as if the person who was panicking just now wasn't herself. Eldest cousin, why did you come here at this time? Ben Wang thought you knew. Xiao Su said coldly. Liang Danbing was swept back by Xiao Su's gaze and didn't dare to speak again. Liang Danjing bit her lip and resisted this cold gaze, not to be outdone. Liang Danjing forced a smile. Younger sister really doesn't know. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. Ben Wang knows that you came here under Imperial Mother's orders. Ben Wang didn't make things difficult for you and even let Ian arrange a place to stay. It's not because I acknowledge your status, but because I want to appease Imperial Mother's heart. As long as you don't cause any trouble, Ben Wang guarantees that you will safely return to the Liang family. When you get married in the future, Ben Wang will definitely send you rich congratulatory gifts. It's a pity that you touched Ian. These words were even more embarrassing than a direct rejection. The Liang family's beautiful sisters instantly paled. Liang Danbing flew into a rage out of humiliation. She didn't care that the other party was the legendary bloodthirsty war god. What's so good about Chu Qingyan? Is it worth you protecting her like this? In terms of talent, she can't compare to my older sister. In terms of family background, she can't compare to our Liang family. She is completely useless. How can she help you in the future? Is this how the Liang family teaches their children? Conceited? Xiao Su's eyes were cold. Hearing this, he could imagine how much the little fellow had suffered in front of them. People that always talked about their family background and status, how could they expect them to be merciful? Liang Danbing's lips trembled. She didn't know how to refute this. Ben Wang doesn't need you to remind me of whether I need help or not. If you and the people behind you can't know your place, Ben Wang can eliminate the Liang family right now. Xiao Su disdained arguing with women. He had specially come today because he had some words that he needed to use their mouths to pass on to the Liang family. Once these words were said, the blood drained from their faces. Chapter 8:16. The reason why the Liang sisters were so fearless was not only because of Empress Liang's support, but also because they relied on the Liang family's power. Therefore, Xiao Su could not fall out with the Liang family. But who would have thought that Xiao Su did not care about the Liang family at all? Once this understanding was broken, how could the two sisters of the Liang family not panic? Eldest cousin, what do you want to do? Liang Danjing was still calm, but the trembling in her voice revealed her current emotions. Without waiting for Xiao Su to answer, Wu Ling bowed and said, "To Mrs., the carriage to return to the capital has been prepared. Please pack your luggage and set off before the sky turns dark." What? Xiao Su wanted to send them away. Liang Danbing shook her head in fear. Eldest cousin, you can't do this. We were sent here by aunt. If we go back like this, what will the noble children of the capital think of us? How will our Liang family stand in the court? When they first came to Jiangnan, it was not done in secret. The Liang family had already spread the word. Originally, they thought their marriage to the imperial family was set in stone. If they were sent back like this, not only would they lose face, even the Liang family would lose face. They thought that even if Chu Qingyan left the Fu without permission, he would still be angry and not give face to the monk. But he did not care about their friendship and acted so ruthlessly. That's your business. When you spoke ill of Ian and tried to drive a wedge between us, you should have thought of today's situation. At the beginning, he had considered too many things and let the little fellow suffer. Xiao Su's gaze tightened. Although he did not personally see the little fellow leave Jiangnan, he could imagine how uncomfortable it was for her to make this decision. The people he cared about, even if he was angry with her, he rarely said harsh words because he was afraid she would feel uncomfortable. But the people he tried his best to protect were insulted by them. How could he not be angry? Liang Danjing saw further than her sister. If they left Jiangnan today, then their Liang family and Xiao Su would be irreparable. She took a step forward. Her eyes were filled with tears and she looked very pitiful. Eldest cousin, I was possessed. I felt that big sister Chu's family background and personality were not suitable for you. That was why I said something that caused big sister Chu to misunderstand. I already know that I was wrong. If big sister Chu comes back, I am willing to apologize and clear the misunderstanding. The tears in her eyes stubbornly refused to fall. In Liang Danjing's mind, for a man like Xiao Su to be so obedient and gentle towards Chu Qingyan, he should be someone who cherishes the fairer sex. Today, he had said so much only because he was angry. As long as she admitted her mistake and showed weakness, perhaps his anger would dissipate and he would no longer be angry. Unfortunately, Liang Danjing didn't understand Xiao Su. In this world, if there was someone that could make Xiao Su's iron heart soften, then only Chu Qingyan's tears could soften his heart. Others would only make him more annoyed. There's no need to apologize. This prince believes that for Ayan, what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. That is what she wants to see. Xiao Su lightly said. When Liang Danjing heard this, she wanted to pull on his sleeve and plead for mercy. But before her fingers could touch his clothes, he flung her hand away. She was the first miss of the honorable noble family of Xixian nation. She had never humbly begged anyone before. However, her compromise did not get the result she wanted. Instead, she was easily trampled on. It was as if she had fallen from the clouds into a quagmire. She was in a sorry state. Jealousy and resentment filled her eyes bit by bit. She steadied her footsteps and looked at Xiao Su with hatred as she said, enunciating each word clearly. What ability does Chu Qingyan have to receive older cousin's special treatment? She is not worthy of you in any way. This kind of imperial daughter-in-law will only bring shame to the imperial family. In the future, she will not be able to provide you with any help. This kind of person is not your wings, but your chicken ribs. In this king's eyes, no one can compare to her. Xiao Su's voice was filled with anger. What qualifications do you have to criticize her? He was rarely angered by others, but this little fellow was his bottom line. If anyone disrespected her, he would definitely get back at them for her. From the moment they entered the door until now, although Xiao Su was dissatisfied with them, he had not shown any obvious anger. Liang Danjing finally discovered that Chu Qingyan was not just a girl that Xiao Su was interested in. She felt that if they could not safely get through today, then they would not have a chance to become the imperial concubine of the King of England in the future. She knew that Xiao Su did not like them bringing up the Liang family, but she had no way out now. Fine, I don't have the qualifications, but what about the Liang family? Our Liang family is loyal to you and wholeheartedly wants to support you, but you are always so distant. Now, you don't even put the Liang family in your eyes, but you turn a deaf ear to our sincerity. Older cousin, by doing this, are you worthy of your aunt, who painstakingly raised you, and the Liang family, who are loyal to you and have schemed for you? Schemed for this king. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows slightly, revealing a trace of mockery. Liang Danjing panicked because of his words. For so many years, if it was not for his help in the dark, the Liang family would have been completely swallowed up by the Fu family in the past 2 years. If the Liang family could be on par with the Fu family now and know their place, perhaps he would have protected them for a few years. Unfortunately, people's desires swelled with power. Now, they were no longer satisfied with the current situation and were in a heated argument with the Fu family. His imperial mother was also adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. In a few years, the Liang family's 100 years of foundation would be destroyed in the hands of this generation. This king can let the Liang family stand tall in the court and not fall, but I can also make the Liang family disappear in an instant. If you know what's good for you, then scram back to the capital. Otherwise, don't blame this king for personally taking action. When these words were said, the Liang sisters' legs turned to jelly and they almost collapsed to the ground. Xiao Su would definitely do what he said. No one would have thought that their little provocation would cause the Liang family and Xiao Su to shed all pretense of cordiality. She was just a lowly Chu Qingyan. Xiao Su didn't even bother to look at them. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. Huo Ling, who was left in the room, was angry at the two of them, but because of the gentlemanly demeanor the little princess had mentioned, he kindly reminded them. There are still 6 hours before the sky turns dark. The Fu will not keep the two misses for dinner. Please have the servant girls quickly clean up so you can be on your way. Huo Ling's calm words and the guards who were glaring at them from the side made Liang Danjing see the situation clearly. They had already been abandoned by Xiao Su. No, it should be because of them that the Liang family had been abandoned by Xiao Su. Chapter 8:17. Xiao Su received Turin's news when he returned from the side courtyard. Master, the young princess consort has already left Jiangnan and is heading north. Turin stood in the study and reported quickly. How many people did she bring with her? Xiao Su asked in a low voice. Su Yi and the others have all taken her away. Jean Xin is also with her. Did our men follow her? They did, but they kept a certain distance. They were worried that the young princess consort would discover them. Fortunately, although the young princess consort left in a hurry, she had brought her men with her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the guts to report. Xiao Su pondered after hearing this. He had heard the little fellow mention that he planned to send men to assist Sima Jun's group. However, he had been busy with the official salt and had been in a cold war with the little fellow for the past 2 days, so he hadn't had the time to ask about the details. Xiao Su suddenly regretted not asking about the little fellow's affairs. That was why he didn't know anything about the little fellow. Lan Manor's influence was spread all over the world. This matter of seizing power was no small matter. The little fellow's trip boded ill rather than well. Xiao Su didn't think too much and said, "Prepare the horses. We will set off in a quarter of an hour." Turin didn't dare to delay and immediately agreed. Xiao Su's expression was deep. No one could tell what he was thinking. Huo Ling walked in at this time. Seeing his master's cold aura, he couldn't help but lower his head. Master, the 2 young misses of the Liang family have already left the Fu. Xiao Su's tone was indifferent. Send a few people to keep an eye on them. Don't cause any trouble. Yes, this subordinate has already informed the hidden guards along the way. Huo Ling replied. When we return, go to the disciplinary hall to receive your punishment. Xiao Su turned to look at him, his tone was still indifferent. Huo Ling lowered his head even more. This subordinate knows his mistake. Although his master didn't say why he was being punished, Huo Ling understood. That night, when the young princess consort went to find his master, he should have paid attention and reported it afterwards. Otherwise, today's incident wouldn't have happened. When Xiao Su and his entourage left on their horses, Cheng Yanluo stood on top of the attic and looked in the direction of the billowing smoke with a gratified smile. This Xiao Su was finally enlightened and knew how to chase after people. She could be at ease. When she turned around and stretched, she saw Ethereal standing in the corner. Her expression stiffened for a moment, and then she put down her hand as if nothing had happened. She gave him a polite smile and prepared to leave. Cheng Yanluo heard him speak as they brushed past each other. Xiaoyan, this is a medicinal powder that I came up with a few days ago. Pour it into warm water and take it. It can relieve the hoarseness in your throat. Ethereal took out a white jade bottle from his sleeve and handed it to her. On the way back, the cargo ship had encountered a storm and she had fallen sick. Although she had recuperated for a few days, her throat still felt uncomfortable, but the symptoms weren't very obvious. She had wanted to go to the kitchen to stew some snow pear with rock sugar, but she didn't expect him to see through her illness. Cheng Yanluo looked at the gentle and caring person in front of her and her heart surged. But she quickly suppressed the surge and raised her hand, intending to take the bottle. Perhaps Ethereal didn't expect her to accept it so readily and thought that he would have to spend a lot of effort to persuade her. He was slightly distracted and forgot to let go of Cheng Yanluo's hand when she was about to take the bottle. Their fingertips touched and both of them were stunned. Cheng Yanluo didn't know whether to take it back or not. Thus, the two of them looked at each other awkwardly. Ethereal caught the flash of hesitation in her eyes. Before she could retract her hand, he gently grasped her wrist and placed the bottle in her palm. He glanced at her before releasing her hand and taking a step back. He said, "I have something to do in the pharmacy. I'll take my leave first." It was rare that she didn't quarrel with him. Although Ethereal longed for the peaceful atmosphere between the two of them, he was afraid that he would say something wrong. She didn't want to accept the medicine, so he turned and left, not daring to linger. Cheng Yenluo was dazed for a moment when she felt the warmth on her wrist. But before she could regain her senses, the warmth was gone. When she looked up, all she could see was his back as he slowly walked down the stairs until he was out of sight. Cheng Yenluo retracted her gaze and looked at the ice-cold bottle in her hand. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly. Such self-righteous concern. Don't you know that this small illness can be cured with just 2 bowls of snow pear with rock sugar? What a waste of energy. Although she said that, Cheng Yenluo still reluctantly accepted the bottle. On the streets of Jiangnan, a carriage was moving through the crowd. As soon as it reached the city gates, it heard a conversation inside. "Elder sister, what should we do? Are we really going to leave just like that?" Liang Danbing hadn't dared to speak since her elder sister was angrily reprimanded by Xiao Su in the afternoon. When she saw her elder sister's ugly expression, she was afraid that she would say something that Xiao Su could use against her. It was only now that she asked in a trembling voice. "Our trip to Jiangnan has failed. We have no other choice but to leave this place first." Liang Danjing's voice was light and weak. The confrontation with Xiao Su just now had exhausted all her strength. "Then what's next?" Liang Danbing asked. "Don't be afraid. There's also Aunt. We must report today's matter to Aunt and Uncle as soon as possible. There are some things that we can't do in person, but don't forget about the people behind us." Liang Danjing's face was full of resentment when she said this. "But eldest cousin doesn't care about our Liang family at all. Even if Aunt comes forward, is there any room to turn things around?" Thinking of eldest cousin's words just now, Liang Danbing couldn't help but tremble. That was simply the king of hell that came from hell. He was too terrifying. The rumors were true. Xiao Su's words are like that, but Aunt will not agree with him doing this. Although His Majesty is still in his prime, the position of Crown Prince will be decided sooner or later. He needs our Liang family. Liang Danjing's eyes were dark as she spoke with certainty. Just as Liang Danbing wanted to say something, she suddenly heard the sound of horse hooves. It was uniform like thunder. Liang Danbing couldn't help but lift the curtain and saw Huoling's group of people quickly riding their horses down the road in front of them. Liang Danjing also saw this group of people. Her eyes fell on the person wearing a bamboo hat at the front. Although she couldn't see his face, she could still determine that person was Xiao Su. "Elder sister, where are they going?" Liang Danbing suddenly forgot her own situation. Seeing such a well-dressed group of people, her voice carried a trace of shock. "They should be looking for Chu Qingyan." Liang Danjing didn't want to admit it in her heart, but she still replied. "They actually sent out this many people. It seems like eldest cousin really cares about Chu Qingyan, that cheap wench." Liang Danbing gritted her teeth as she vented her anger. Liang Danjing thought for a bit before saying, "Send a messenger pigeon to Aunt and say that Chu Qingyan has left the palace." "Why are you telling Aunt this?" Liang Danbing still had not recovered from her anger. "Just do as I say." She had always known that her aunt wanted to get rid of Chu Qingyan. If not, she would not have sent the most experienced nanny in the palace, as well as her most trusted bodyguard. However, her aunt probably did not know that her people would be destroyed so quickly. Since it was like this, she would give Aunt a chance. If Chu Qingyan died outside without knowing anything, then it couldn't be blamed on them. "Chu Qingyan, without eldest cousin's protection, I want to see how long you can live." Thinking of this, a sinister smile appeared on his usually calm face. Chapter 8:18. The group had been walking for 3 days. At this time, Chu Qingyan and the rest stopped in the wilderness to rest. Tanning held 2 pieces of clear water filled with lotus leaves and handed them to the 2 masters. Then, she heard the 2 of them bickering. Why do we have to rest here? If we don't continue, we won't be able to enter the city when it gets dark. Chu Qingyan complained to Sima Jun, because this lady is tired from walking and wants to rest. Do you have a problem with that? Sima Jun said righteously. Chu Qingyan choked on her words. Then, her eyes flashed as if she thought of something. She looked at Sima Jun maliciously. Is it because there are more people looking at me than you on the streets today? So you're unhappy? Sima Jun wasn't angry that she was exposed. She was thick-skinned. She crossed her legs and said in a tone that was asking for a beating, I'm just unhappy. What can you do about it? TSK, who told you to wear a veil? We don't have discerning eyes, and we're not that sophisticated to be able to see through a veil. So, you're being unreasonable. Chu Qingyan waved her hand, looking very disdainful. Chu Qingyan had a beautiful face that deceived the world. Along the way, she received the coquettish glances of many young girls. Compared to Sima Jun, who covered her face with a white veil all day, she was very eye-catching. Little girl, you actually dare to bully me. Take this. Sima Jun flew up. When she leaped over a tall tree, she grabbed a branch and swung it at Chu Qingyan. Bring it on, who's afraid of who? Chu Qingyan imitated her words. She was really asking for a beating. She kicked the ground and a branch flew up. Then, she clenched her fist and exchanged blows with Sima Jun. Everyone had long been accustomed to this scene. It was nothing more than the 2 masters' hands itching and wanting to exchange blows. However, every time, the topic of dispute was not the same. It was really difficult for them. Thus, everyone went to collect firewood, light a fire, and hunt. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. After fighting to their heart's content, Chu Qingyan and Sima Jun looked at each other with satisfaction on their faces. There aren't many people who can exchange a few blows with me. Sima Jun's words were filled with praise for Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan was not to be outdone. Speaking of which, I rarely see people who can still stand after exchanging 50 moves with me. After saying that, the 2 of them looked at each other and laughed. Chu Qingyan, you are an interesting person. Sima Jun walked forward and patted her on the shoulder, laughing very happily. Chu Qingyan smiled. Same here. It's been a long time since I've met someone who suits my taste so well. Didn't I buy a few pots of wine today? I want to drink to my heart's content. After saying that, Sima Jun left her behind and quickly walked towards the fire. Drunkard. Chu Qingyan shook her head and laughed. Along the way, she found out that Sima Jun was a person who would not be happy without wine. However, he could not get drunk. It could be said that he would not get drunk even after 1,000 cups. Chu Qingyan was very envious. Chu Qingyan threw away the branch in her hand and followed with a smile. Just as she walked to the fire, Sima Jun had already opened a pot of wine. When he saw her coming, he casually threw the wine pot to her. Chu Qingyan caught it in a fluster and heaved a sigh of relief. Smelling the wine, she could not help but think of a certain person's threat. She immediately returned it to Sima Jun, drink it yourself. I just said that you were interesting. Now you're not interesting enough. It's just a cup of wine. You always make excuses. Boring. Sima Jun ignored the wine jug that was handed to him. He took another jug and opened it with his teeth. Then, he took a big gulp from the jug. Chu Qingyan smiled apologetically and sat down beside him. I really don't know how to drink. Don't make things difficult for me. What do you mean you don't know how to drink? You can't be drunk after 1 cup, right? Sima Jun looked at her suspiciously. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. I don't know either. Anyway, big ice cube, he. At this point, her expression turned gloomy and she changed the topic. I still have to keep watch. What if someone sneaks up on me? Sima Jun looked at her meaningfully. There are so many people keeping watch. You won't make a difference. I think you're thinking that your husband has ordered you repeatedly. You're not even married yet and you're already so obedient. Be careful that when you get married, he'll eat you whole. You're single. Don't you have to let go of your guts and have fun? Otherwise, why is marriage a grave? Chu Qingyan's expression turned sour. She lowered her brows to hide the emotions in her eyes. When Sima Jun saw her half-dead expression again, he felt that all the effort he had put in to make her livelier was in vain. He couldn't help but lose some of his interest in drinking. Little girl, running away isn't a solution. Because the problem is like a ball. As long as it isn't solved, you'll still end up back at the same place after running around in a big circle. Sima Jun said earnestly. Chu Qingyan looked up, but she was looking at the darkness in the distance. She said calmly, I'm not running away from the problem. I just want to calm my heart. Won't you still have to face it in the end? Why waste time? Sima Jun retorted. Chu Qingyan admitted that she was right. However, not everyone could live as an outsider. Those involved could not see clearly and understand the logic. But when it happened to them, they were helpless. She still couldn't face Big Ice Cube. Thinking of this, Chu Qingyan retorted sarcastically, Sima, what about you? What's the matter with that era leader? You won her heart and then don't want her anymore. It's not good to abandon her after having sex with her. Sima Jun didn't expect the person in front of her to lead the fire to her. It was rare for her to suddenly become a caring older sister, but the person in front of her didn't appreciate it. What era leader? I don't know him. She denied flatly. Oh, I know. He's not called era leader. He's called Ji Linyang. Chu Qingyan chuckled. I say, you suddenly came to Jiangnan to avoid him. Sima Jun's face darkened. She glared fiercely at Tan Ning. Chu Qingyan had been hanging out with her these past few days. This girl must have betrayed her. Tan Ning received her master's resentment and immediately jumped up. This subordinate will go change Shangguang's medicine. With that, she slipped away as quickly as she could. Sima Jun angrily raised her head and drank another mouthful of wine. She wanted to change the topic, but Chu Qingyan didn't intend to let her off. She leaned over and tossed the wine jug in her hand. She asked mysteriously, hurry up and tell me, what's going on between you and Ji Linyang? How did you abandon him after having sex with him? Sima Jun pushed her away and said in annoyance, I didn't expect you to be so nosy. If you're not drinking, go away. Don't disturb me when I'm drinking. Chu Qingyan could tell that Sima Jun would change at the mention of Ji Linyang. She hugged the wine jug and drank fiercely. It was as if she was the one who had been abandoned. How strange. Chu Qingyan was very curious about the person Sima Jun cared about. She really wanted to meet him. However, she didn't expect that she would meet Ji Linyang so soon. Chapter 819. Xiao Su's group rushed day and night and finally arrived at a town. Originally, they could have caught up with Chu Qingyan's group yesterday. However, when they took a shortcut and passed by a mountain, they encountered a group of bandits. These bandits took over the mountain and acted like kings. They burned, killed, and plundered, causing the people here to suffer. Because the bandits were familiar with the complicated terrain, it was easy to defend and difficult to attack. Thus, Xiao Su led people to deal with them for 2 days. In the end, they directly attacked and annihilated them in one fell swoop. Where are they now? Xiao Su asked expressionlessly as he stood in front of the stronghold that was filled with flames and looked down at the continuous mountain range below. Huo Ling stepped forward and replied, according to the time, the young princess Consort should have arrived at Meilong town. Good. Lu Guang, take a few people and stay behind to watch the bandits. When the local officials arrive, hand them over to them. The rest of you, get ready and rest. We will set off in 2 hours. Xiao Su ordered. Yes. An orderly voice resounded in the valley. After the people behind him dispersed, Xiaosu walked to the top of the mountain and stood against the wind, looking into the distance. Little fellow, I won't let you wait for too long. The night passed peacefully, but Sima Jun drank a lot. She only woke up when they were on the road. After a good night's sleep, neither Chu Qingyan nor Gu Ruoyun mentioned their conversation last night. Hey, cover your face. Don't use that face of yours to fool around. I don't want to cover myself up like you. I want to be magnanimous in front of others. Shameless. I want to be shameless, that's why I show others. Along the way, they jested as usual. They walked like this for another 2 days. Because they received news that the traitor Xing Ming of Lan Manor had sent people to search for Sima Jun's whereabouts in the big towns, they did not go to the towns anymore. It's all your fault. I can't go see handsome men and beautiful women now. Chu Qingyan bit on a straw and looked unhappily at the person lying in the carriage like a spineless person. This person had only ridden for 2 days and was complaining of back pain. She had no choice but to find a carriage for her. What's so good about handsome men and beautiful women? They're just skin bags. I've never heard of it. Form is not different from emptiness, emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Stop, stop. Chu Qingyan had a headache when she heard this. By the way, who was the one who said yesterday that if you die under a peony flower, you will be a romantic ghost? I didn't expect you to have 2 faces. Yesterday and today are different. Silly, this is called being flexible, okay? Living the lives of 2 people, that's called being smart. Sima Jun's words left Chu Qingyan speechless. Chu Qingyan snorted coldly and could not be bothered with her. It was another night spent in the wilderness. Summer was approaching, and the weather was getting hotter and hotter. In the wild, there were many mosquitoes, rats, and ants. Chu Qingyan was bitten several times. She regretted not bringing Yan Luo's mosquito repellent with her, so she could only squat here and feed the mosquitoes. They had been walking for several days. According to Tanning, they were about to reach Lan Manor's nest. Chu Qingyan could clearly feel the atmosphere getting more and more tense along the way. Because she had scattered the people around her and hid in the dark, there were only 4 or 5 people following her. In the eyes of outsiders, it was nothing more than a playboy taking his beautiful wife out to play. But today, Chu Qingyan found that Sima Jun was unexpectedly silent. Even when she tried to make her laugh, Sima Jun didn't respond and was often distracted. Chu Qingyan found it very strange. While they were resting at night, she pulled Tanning to one side. What's wrong with your master? Because she had told Chu Qingyan about Ji Linyang last time, her master had ignored her for several days. Tanning waved her hand with lingering fear. This subordinate doesn't know anything. With that, she immediately ran away as if there was a wolf chasing after her. The more they acted like this, the more Chu Qingyan felt that there must be something going on. But she felt that it wouldn't be easy to pry the truth out of their mouths. However, she blinked and clapped her hands. She had an idea. Sima Jun was sitting under the tree in a daze when she heard a noise and turned her head. She saw Chu Qingyan swaggering in front of her, followed by Jean Xian, who was carrying a jar of wine. What? Have you thought it through? Do you want to have a drink with me? Sima Jun raised her brows and asked. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and Jean Xian put down the wine jar and retreated. Sima Jun took it without hesitation. She removed the stopper and the fragrance of the wine wafted out. She smacked her lips. It's been aged for 10 years. Good wine. Where did you get it? The last time we entered the city, I secretly hid a jar. I was afraid that an alcoholic like you would finish it in one go. I had to be careful. Chu Qingyan also sat down and glanced at her. Sima Jun heard her cautious tone and snorted. Then why did you take it out now? Because I'm a soft-hearted person. I can't bear to see someone grieving over the passing of spring and the passing of autumn. Chu Qingyan sighed. It was rare for Sima Jun to be rendered speechless by her. She poured a mouthful of wine into her mouth and the spicy taste entered her throat. She pursed her lips and said to Chu Qingyan, "This wine is very strong. Don't drink it. If someone sneaks up on you at night, at least one of us has to be sober." Chu Qingyan looked at her in surprise. "Don't get drunk. Otherwise, when your enemy comes, I won't be able to protect you." Sima Jun smiled. "My life is in your hands. You have to protect it well." With that, Sima Jun raised her head and poured the wine down her throat again. One mouthful after another, she didn't stop. Chu Qingyan saw that she was drinking in such a hurry and regretted taking the wine out. She wanted to persuade her not to drink, but when the words were about to come out of her mouth, she felt a faint layer of invisible loneliness shrouding her body. She couldn't say anything. Although it was said that drowning one's sorrows in alcohol made one even more sorrowful, Chu Qingyan thought that if she got drunk tonight and woke up tomorrow, she would be that high-spirited Sima Jun who always quarreled with her. That would be great. Hence, Chu Qingyan leaned against the tree trunk and watched her finish the wine. She drank too quickly. Even if she was a wine immortal, she couldn't withstand the strength of the wine. Very soon, Sima Jun was drunk. She hugged the wine jar and revealed a sorrowful expression that she had never shown before. "Little girl, I miss home." Chu Qingyan was paying close attention to the surroundings. When she suddenly heard this sentence, she was puzzled. Thinking that she was hearing things, she lowered her head to look at Sima Jun. She saw that her eyes were hazy and unfocused. One look and she knew that she was drunk. At this moment, Sima Jun burped and smiled. Her red lips were like flames, flamboyant and strong. It was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. But if one ignored the desolation in her smile, it would be even more pleasing to the eye. "I've been here for almost 20 years. I want to go back." Once the desolate voice came out, it was blown away by the night wind. Chu Qingyan frowned slightly. She thought that Sima Jun was drunk and talking nonsense. She reached out to help her up. But when she was about to touch her arm, she turned her hand to the flexible sword at her waist. Sima Jun's crow mouth was right. There was a sneak attack tonight. Chapter 820. Chu Qingyan pulled out her sword and turned around. As expected, there were dozens of men in black standing behind her. She had placed all her attention on Sima Jun earlier and only noticed them when they were so close to her. These people came aggressively, as if they had turned out in full force. The black mass of people surrounded the entire forest. "Who are you?" Chu Qingyan calmly looked at one of the men who was not dressed in black. He was about 30 years old, and his looks were ordinary. However, there was a sinister look in his eyes that could not be ignored. This man must be the leader. That person stood out and swept a glance at the drunk Sima Jun. His eyes flashed as if he was trying to determine if she was really drunk or just faking it. He said to Chu Qingyan in an unfriendly tone, "You've got guts. You're already here. What's the use of me panicking?" Chu Qingyan shrugged. "Young man, don't try to be brave. There's no benefit in doing so. I only want Sima Jun. As long as you hand her over, we won't make things difficult for you." That person spoke arrogantly, completely disregarding Chu Qingyan. He was willing to speak so much with her only because he wanted to end the battle quickly and not waste manpower. At this time, the sound of weapons clashing could be heard from afar. Jin Xian and Tanning quickly ran over. "Master, our people have been entangled." Jin Xian pointed his sword at the men in black warily as he whispered to his master. Tanning pointed at the leader and said angrily, "Xing Ming, you're ungrateful. If not for master saving you back then, would you still be able to act like a tyrant here?" Xing Ming laughed. "Tanning, what's the use of saying all this? Wait till I control the entire Lan Manor and strengthen it. That will be the best repayment to the Manor Lord." To think that he could say such shameless words. Chu Qingyan swept a glance at these people and couldn't help but frown. There were at least 100 of them. Even if her people were skilled in martial arts and could fight 1 against 10, they wouldn't be able to defeat them. If Sima Jun was sober, they might be able to fight their way out if they joined forces. Unfortunately, if she had known earlier, she wouldn't have taken out the wine. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. She could only fight head-on. Hand over the manor lord and I can let you all go. Xing Ming raised his hand and the people behind him all took out their weapons. The blades were pointed at the moon, illuminating the dark forest. These people were not easy to fool. They all had imposing auras. If they didn't, there would be a fierce battle. Tanning, who was at the side, looked at Chu Qingyan worriedly. She was afraid that Chu Qingyan would really hand over her master. However, in this situation, she was in a dilemma. Perhaps it was because victory was already in his hands, Xing Ming did not put the immature brat in front of him in his eyes. Thus, he answered with some patience. You betrayed your master, that's disloyalty. You repaid kindness with enmity, that's unrighteousness. A disloyal and unrighteous person like you should be despised by the world. If I, Chu Yan, were to submit to you today, wouldn't I be worse than you? Chu Qingyan looked at him fearlessly, as if she didn't care about his men at all. Xing Ming was shocked by Chu Qingyan's imposing aura. When he regained his senses, he looked at her in anger, what a shameless brat. Today, I will let you know what it means to stroke a tiger's whiskers. Men, wait. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to stop him. Xing Ming smiled proudly, what? Scared? Chu Qingyan laughed softly. The Blue Manor is also a famous manor. There should be many heroes and heroes under it. Xing Ming, if you win today because you have more people on your side, we have nothing to say. However, if word gets out that you are a bully, an ingrate, and a usurper, do you think you can still hold your position in the Blue Manor? Xing Ming's face turned ugly. Chu Qingyan had stepped on his sore spot. The reason why he personally came here today to capture the manor lord was so that he wouldn't give others an excuse to force her to abdicate. Then what do you want? Xing Ming said fiercely. You want me to hand over Sima manor lord? That's impossible. But if one of you can defeat me and make me admit defeat, then I will surrender. How about it? Chu Qingyan said indifferently. Xing Ming laughed when he heard this, as expected. A fledgling isn't afraid of tigers. With your skinny arms and legs, can you beat me, Ziying? At this moment, one of Xing Ming's subordinates reminded him, Hall Master, be careful of traps. Chu Qingyan said sarcastically, we can't escape even if we have wings. What are you afraid of? I didn't think that your subordinates are all cowards. They're not fun at all. When Xing Ming heard this, he felt that he had been humiliated by a junior. He kicked his subordinate and said coldly, all right, then I'll spar with you. As long as you can take 10 moves from me, I'll let you go. All right. Chu Qingyan agreed readily. Tanning said worriedly, Master Chu, Xing Ming's martial arts are strong. You must be careful. Chu Qingyan turned around and patted her shoulder, don't worry. I'll definitely defeat him. Xing Ming laughed contemptuously. Chu Qingyan smiled and said to Tanning in a low voice, you said that you've contacted Sima's guards. I'll try my best to stall for time. You find a chance to sneak out and see if you're lucky enough to meet them. Tan Ying's eyes brightened. When she received the news yesterday, Yuing was already on his way. Logically speaking, the earliest he could arrive was tonight. She glanced at Xing Ming and agreed. Chu Qingyan patted her shoulder and gave Jean Xian a look. Jean Xian nodded knowingly. At this moment, Xing Ming had already waved his hand to get his subordinates to make way for her. Chu Qingyan slowly walked to the center of the stage. Her eyes looked like they were smiling. This Xing Ming kept calling her a junior, but in the end, he was still worried about her. Most importantly, he could not allow himself to be careless. Xing Ming looked coldly at Chu Qingyan. Even if it was spread that he was bullying the weak, he would kill this arrogant brat and control the manor lord. Chu Qingyan held the sword in her hand and cupped her hands towards Xing Ming. Please. Xing Ming smiled. If you have any last words, say them now. I'm afraid you won't have time to say them later. Someone told my fortune that I'll live to 100 years old. Thank you for your concern. Chu Qingyan said casually. Seeing her like this, Xing Ming was even more certain that she was an idiot who only knew how to talk big. He didn't take her seriously at all. After the first exchange, Xing Ming was shocked. This inner strength, Chu Qingyan smiled and didn't give him a chance to react. She attacked again and Xing Ming was overwhelmed. After exchanging 3 blows, Xing Ming was already on the losing side. Who are you? Xing Ming was forced to take a step back and looked at her with a serious expression. Is it important who I am? Chu Qingyan stood on the same spot and smiled casually. Xing Ming had to treat her seriously. Just as he was about to attack again, he heard someone shout, "They're here." Tanning brought reinforcements. So fast. Everyone turned to look in the direction of the shout. Chu Qingyan's hand paused, and she turned to look in another direction as if she had sensed something. She met a pair of familiar eyes. Chapter 821. Chu Qingyan didn't expect him to appear here and was more shocked than pleasantly surprised. It was at this moment that Jean Xian, who was by her side, shielded her and brought her to the other side. She inexplicably turned to the other side, and when she saw a tongue of fire rapidly approaching from the distance, she realized that the people she had just spoken of were those people. For some reason, she felt a little guilty and didn't dare to turn back in the direction she was looking at. She could only focus on the people in front of her. The group of people holding torches was led by an extremely young and handsome man. He was dressed in a silver-white robe and held the reins as he urged his horse towards them. Chu Qingyan first put down the psychological impact of the ice cube suddenly descending from the sky and frowned slightly. She didn't know if these people were friends or foes. If they were enemies, then looking at the number of people they brought, they probably wouldn't be able to escape even if they had wings. At this moment, Xing Ming spoke in shock and helped her resolve her doubts. Ji Linyang. Why is he here? This terrified voice caused Chu Qingyan's eyes to light up slightly. Wasn't this the pitiful man whom Sima Jun had abandoned after having sex with him? But she was a little puzzled. According to Tanning, they had contacted the guards. Why did Ji Linyang bring people over first? But no matter who it was fine as long as they weren't friends or foes. Although Ji Linyang and the others seemed to be close, there was still some distance before they arrived. Chu Qingyan had been wary of Xing Ming and indeed wanted to make the first move. So you were stalling for time. Xing Ming's face was filled with anger from being deceived. He raised his hand and his subordinates behind him drew their weapons and approached Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Xing Ming, you have to keep your word. You said that I would definitely lose within 10 moves. Why did you change your mind after just 3 moves? Could it be that you know you can't beat me so you want to bully me with numbers? As she spoke, Chu Qingyan glanced at the people behind Xing Ming. Her tone was full of mockery. Although he knew that Chu Qingyan was trying to provoke him, how could he, a high and mighty person, be bullied by this little brat again and again? How could he swallow this anger? He was so angry that he laughed. All right, I'll deal with this brat. The rest of you, take the manor lord back. The wind is strong here, be careful not to let the manor lord catch a cold. Chu Qingyan frowned. She didn't know if Ji Linyang and the others could arrive if she bought more time. She knew that the ice cube was here. And over my dead body, over. When Su Yi and the others saw that the reinforcements had arrived, they didn't continue to fight. Each of them withdrew from the battle and used their qing gong to rush towards their masters. Soon, they surrounded them and protected them in a circle. You think too highly of yourself. Xing Ming scoffed. He knew that if he delayed any longer, Ji Linyang's men would arrive. He sent half of his men to stop Ji Linyang while the rest attacked Chu Qingyan and the others. Chu Qingyan gestured for them to protect Sima Jun while she fought Xing Ming alone with her sword. After the previous exchange, Xing Ming knew that this brat who came out of nowhere was not as easy to fool as he appeared. His martial arts might even be better than his. Xing Ming had been in the pugilistic world for so many years and had met countless experts. However, other than his manor lord, there was only this person in front of him who was so young. He didn't dare to let his guard down. He raised his internal energy to 100% and used all his skills in every move. Chu Qingyan looked at the sinister Xing Ming. As she exchanged blows with him, she giggled and said, "Just now, you said that you would defeat me within 10 moves. I wonder who it will be in the end." With that, she stopped hiding her strength because she heard the neighing of horses. Since the reinforcements had arrived, there was no need for her to delay any longer. Chu Qingyan suddenly changed her attacks. Every move was swift and fierce, unlike the scattered attacks from before. Xing Ming had no way of defending himself and retreated continuously. The 10th move. As soon as the elegant voice sounded, Xing Ming was hit by Chu Qingyan's palm. He spat out blood and retreated. Xing Ming was caught by his subordinates behind him. When he looked up, he saw Chu Qingyan holding her sword with one hand behind her back. She smiled brightly. "Thank you for letting me win." Today's plan had been foiled by this person again and again. Xing Ming was so angry that he lost all reason. "Archers, get ready. Fire." The subordinate who had warned Xing Ming to be careful said anxiously, "Hall Master, the manor lord is still in their hands. If we fire, we'll cut the crap. I want none of them alive." Xing Ming's eyes were bloodshot as he gave the order viciously. He had wanted to keep Sima Jun alive and force her to hand over all the secrets of Lan Manor. However, Ji Linyang was almost here. If Sima Jun was with him, then all his years of planning would go to waste. As long as Sima Jun was dead, he would be in power. So what if he didn't have the right to do so? Anyone who stood in his way would die. Soon, the archers aimed their bows at Chu Qingyan and the others and fired. Chu Qingyan didn't expect them to have such a trick up their sleeves. Seeing the flashing fire arrows, her face darkened and she immediately ordered everyone to retreat. Soon, the flaming arrows shot towards Chu Qingyan and the others. "Jin Exen, protect Sima." Chu Qingyan gave the order. With a grim face, she helped Su Yi and the others fend off the arrows. The first batch of arrows fell. Although they didn't hurt Chu Qingyan and the others, because they were in the forest, the arrows flew towards the withered grass and trees and were quickly set ablaze. Ji Linyang and the others were already attacking the perimeter. They would arrive here soon. However, the raging flames illuminated Xing Ming's bloodthirsty and delighted smile. Chu Qingyan's heart was already filled with anger. Now that the flames had ignited, she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily to the other side, "Why aren't you coming over to help?" Xing Ming and the others didn't expect Chu Qingyan to speak so angrily, and it didn't seem like she was talking to anyone else. Xing Ming frowned. He was about to speak when he heard a calm and languid voice ring out in the night. "I thought that you would refuse to speak." Chu Qingyan blushed slightly. If not for the fear that the arrows had no eyes and would hurt Sima Jun, she really didn't want him to show himself. The voice just now instilled fear in Xing Ming, as if he was born to submit to a superior. He couldn't help but gain the upper hand by showing his strength. "Which rascal is hiding in the dark? Why aren't you coming out? Who do you think you are?" The indifferent voice was full of mockery. Although Chu Qingyan was still in a cold war with him, she couldn't help but chuckle when she heard his words. After being belittled again and again tonight, Xing Ming felt embarrassed. He waved his hand and gave the order for the second wave of fire to begin. Chu Qingyan wanted to defend herself with her sword, but she suddenly smelled a familiar ink scent. Then, her sword was in someone's other hand, and she, cough cough, was in someone's arms. "You dare to run away from home? You've got guts." Chu Qingyan watched as a certain someone held her sword and blocked the arrows with ease. She couldn't help but shrink into his arms, muttering softly, "It's all because you spoiled her." With that, the hand holding her suddenly withdrew. Chu Qingyan kept quiet and only dared to bare her teeth at him with her back facing him.